3-2 runners are off. The pitch. Swinging the line drive down the right field line. Hooking to the corner. Fair ball. One hop into the seats. 2 runs will score. Tigers take the lead in the 5th on a 2-out, 2-run double from Perez.
Now the pitch. And a swing and a grounder. Left side. Coming in the shortstop, Nunez. Double clutches. Throws to first. Ball gets away from the first baseman. Here comes Isbell to score. And the Royals score the first run of the night here in the 10th inning. It's 1-0.
Gilbert delivers.
And Hayward hits it in the air, deep to right. It sends back Robles at the wall. See you later! Off the facade of the second deck for Jason Hayward. A 2-run homer. And the Astros lead it 4-3.
2-2.
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The winners and still AL West champions, the Houston Astros.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
All right, last night was a great night for baseball. There was a lot of what they call playoff jockeying. But I'm sad. Very, very sad. Not that my lack of sleep, because I stayed up to watch the end of the Padres-Dodgers game last night.
Yeah. Congrats to the Padres.
Which ended with a triple play.
Yeah.
A 5-4-3 triple play with the Padres up 2 runs and Ohtani on deck. What a great way to celebrate and clinch a playoff berth.
Yeah.
But as I'm watching that, I'm watching the Royals, as you heard in the highlight, Steve Stewart. Royals can't score unless Rob Manfred allows them to score, as they finally scored in the 10th inning last night. The Twins are an absolute mess.
Yeah.
The Astros clinch again for the 7th time in 8 years. Schwellenbach is dealing in Atlanta.
Yeah.
They beat the Braves.
Yeah.
I'm watching all of this playoff stuff go on. I'm watching my team in Philadelphia play against a hungover baseball team. Bellinger looks great. And all I can think is I'm watching like teams celebrate, like the Orioles clinched a playoff berth last night.
A lot of celebrations. Yeah.
I was at a playoff game last night.
Yep.
Watching all these teams clinch. Both of you guys have teams in the playoffs.
FOMO.
I'm even more frustrated now at the state of the Cubs. I woke up this morning angry at the Cubs because I missed the fun and excitement of postseason baseball. Last night was a great night for playoff baseball. And we're a week away.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is the friggin' Cubs. And I got Boog telling me, hey, they've won 81 games. So that's 2 straight years. First time since 71, 72 that the Cubs will finish with at least a 500 or better record and not make the playoffs. Thank you.
So there's that.
Fix it, Jed. Ricketts, let's go. Give me back my TikTok and fix the Cubs. Thank you. Thank you. But it was a banger of a night in baseball. So for everybody that's got a team,
yeah,
have fun. I will live vicariously through both of you and Happer and other people that will be having fun next week.
I mean, you think? We'll see how Connor is when he comes in today. You get off the schneid there. You snap that 7-game losing streak too. But I've found myself very much in the Josh Odson, at least for this week, camp, because I know with their success also knocks out the Royals. The Tigers are kind of funny.
Funny good.
Funny good, yes. Yeah,
Great
funny
Scooble,
the way
18 wins.
Well, that's what I was telling Jimmy.
I wouldn't want to play him in the first round.
Exactly. You're going to have to deal with Scooble, and
they're playing playoff
when
baseball.
Yeah, they are. You're right. They've been playing playoff baseball now for a while.
You got a dude too to set the tone. But you mentioned Spencer Schwellenbach last night too. Like that's rootable right there. And I think for a lot of Nebraska baseball fans or people who are interested in Nebraska athletics, and you're looking for maybe that little postseason hook if you don't have a team or a team that's in with Atlanta trying to play their way into that final wild card too, and knowing that Spencer Schwellenbach's part of that, that's kind of cool. So
Omaha can adopt the Phillies.
I'm more excited about that. Now that game, especially too, when it involves not only Spencer Schwellenbach, but a guy that I just can't quit, and that's always Frankie Lindor, because he'll always be the one that got away. There is that intrigue. It is kind of nice.
Yeah, he was going to bat in the 9th. He was on deck.
Mm-hmm. I was feeling though, because now that By the way, a lot of shirtless celebrations with the Phillies.
But it's still
Hey,
summer.
I'm sorry about
It's been
that.
warm this week.
Yeah,
Hey,
Phillies
you know what?
decided to go. They're a big shirtless celebration
Even
too.
more, like we've seen 2 more celebrations yesterday of you don't clinch the division, but you celebrate, and you're celebrating in somebody else's stadium, like the Padres and the Orioles did.
Yep. That's always got to sting a little bit, unless you are also going to the postseason too. And you're like, all right, whatever, have your fun.
Like, do you celebrate twice? Like, let's say,
Oh, yeah.
let's say the Orioles are a game back of the Yankees. Let's say they win tonight at the stadium and the Tide, or they end up winning the AL East. Do they have another celebration?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, they probably vary too. I'm assuming the postseason clinching celebration is a celebration nonetheless, but it's a little bit more subdued than what your division clinching one is. And maybe that's why the Phillies decided to go shirtless. When you win the division, you go shirtless.
Yeah, but you don't want champagne all over you.
But
beer
maybe
dumped on you.
But when
wearing
you got
clothes.
But you got the T-shirt on, then you got to wash it immediately. If you don't have the T-shirt on, if that's just sitting in
But
the
what
bag,
if you're
then
on the
you get to
road? I
wait.
can't watch
I
it.
think in
Well,
the Gary Sharp Fantasy Camp, when you get to have those celebrations, like part of it will be you get Gatorade poured over you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really sticky.
But then we go into the clubhouse and you get to celebrate what it's like winning a championship.
Yeah.
So I would say I would go shirtless and I would have ski goggles.
Yeah,
and
you gotta
I'd be
have ski
set.
goggles. What do you think right now in 2024 though, the ratio from champagne to beer being spilled all over you? Because champagne is extremely sticky. Beer, it's going to smell.
I think
it's not nearly as sticky.
Well, I think as I see more, I think Bud Light actually is a sponsor.
Yeah.
Or Budweiser.
Budweiser.
So there
You see
is
a lot of-
more beer that is being poured.
Yes.
Headaches.
You see a lot of the red aluminum bottles of that as opposed to the cans anymore too. It's the aluminum bottles. I feel like there's maybe a couple
I would rather
champagne.
drink it than pour it on myself, but you know what? To each their own. If you win, you win.
The amount of champagne, well, actually more the beer. The amount of beer though that's just been freely disposed all over the place. It's bound to go in your mouth.
The other maybe the better story last night in baseball, and by the way, good crowd out at Warner Park. The Storm Chasers came up short. They lost 3-2 to Columbus. They had the bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth. They just couldn't get it. Like simultaneously watching the game in front of me, we have the Royals game on the TV in the press box, and neither team could get a hit with runners in scoring position. They'd leave the bases loaded or leave a guy at third. And so last night, the Storm Chasers left the bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth, and they lose game one. They have game two out at Warner Park tonight. But a great crowd out there. I mean, a little over 3,000. It's a Tuesday night. Yeah. It's school night, not on the season ticket plan. Weather was beautiful, but it was like, and I'm sure Connor will double down on this. There was a nice little atmosphere. But the biggest story in baseball last night was what happened on the south side of Chicago. Yeah. So people came. They came from all over. Ray Kinsella came. Okay. He said, I'm going to be there because if they lose 121, I want to be in section 108 with a bag on my head to cheer on the White Sox, setting a record. And you know what happened? The Angels, all of a sudden, late in the game, turned into the White Sox. Yeah. Drop, pop up, and after being 0-94, trailing after 7 innings, the White Sox won a game. Mm-hmm. So
it's like 2005.
We hold off the celebration because I don't know how you celebrate that if you're the White Sox. Like I think
take a picture.
Maybe you go with like a Diet Cola or something instead of the beer.
Maybe a LaCroix, maybe a seltzer water.
But real Coke. I loved what the fans did in Chicago. Did you see the highlight at the end of the game when they got the final out?
No.
People booed.
17,000, right?
The smattering.
I mean, that's what was announced last night.
Yeah, what homeschool did that person go to count people in the stands? The smattering of fans that were there last night booed that the White Sox won a game in their home park.
Yeah, because you wanted to see the record. If you're going to be bad, I mean, that's the thing. I always like to say, anything worth doing is worth doing right. If you're going to be bad, really be bad. Be historically bad.
And I wonder if a White Sox fan gets upset at other people because they're making fun, or they just play along and they're like, yeah, man, did you see the second inning last night? We had 4 guys converging on a pop-up in the middle of the infield and it fell. I mean, the White Sox last night was one of the great Bad News Bears victories of all time. But people were booing. That is fantastic. and then another feel-good moment because of the a-hole that owns the A's and is moving them to Las Vegas with a stop-off in Sacramento. They had 30K and the A's walk it off last night against the Rangers. How can you not be romantic about baseball on a
yes.
Tuesday night in September when it's Purdue week around the state of Nebraska?
Preach on there, Billy Bean. Preach on. It's hard for me to now even, unless they're playing Cleveland, which Detroit, this is another good opportunity to solidify yourself in the postseason with playing Chicago. That might be worth watching just to see what Detroit does. But as far as when the White Sox are playing games, other than last night because it would have been historical, it's such bad baseball. It almost brings your baseball IQ down a notch or two, because when you mention that play at the end, that's the White Sox. In fact, remember what happened in I guess it was a foul territory right behind third base when they also had their
So the Bad News Bears.
And so
who wants to play there? Who's like the next year? Who's going to come to Chicago?
I have no clue.
Every other team in baseball to play the White Sox.
And this is the fascinating thing about the Chicago White Sox is in 2018, the way that they were constructing their roster, there was a cool factor with the Chicago White Sox. There was like, damn, people want to go there.
Okay, so
Chicago.
I'll give you. You're right. So like 3 years ago, yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of them clinching the division.
Mm-hmm.
Hello,
I know
that's quite a fall off.
Yeah. And that was coming off the COVID year where it's like, man, they're on the come.
And they can't even move. They can't move to Tampa anymore.
I
couldn't move anywhere else.
I couldn't look at just because Cleveland always had a lot of issues with Chicago, both when they were having good seasons and bad seasons. I loved watching Dylan Cease. I was a big Dylan Cease fan. They had a rotation that was fun to watch, and you had some young guys, and it looked like the question you asked, who would want to play there going into next year? Like 4 years ago, it was like, who wouldn't? Man, they're young. They got this core.
They had a young core.
Yeah. It's going to be a good team. They're in the Central. The Central's really winnable. Oh, yeah. Man.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. It is a hump day. Hope your hump game is going on early as you're up at 6. Coming up later on the show, Jay Moore stops by. The black shirt has had a little bit of time to soak in what happened on Friday night and what needs to be fixed, and get ready for another team that will try and be physical on Nebraska. It's the Olivia Newton-John game. Let's get physical at 11 a.m. in the morning. That's a line I used once. Let's get physical. Before noon? Oh, my God, yes. JL Jonas coming up at 9, and then Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. As the lineup brought to you by the rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard. There's Jimmy, Nick, Gary. There's another part of, as I listened yesterday, because all the talking for the week is done except for the head coach who'll talk on Thursday, as Nebraska gets ready for Purdue.
And maybe a chasing 3.
Yeah. You know what? It's
not one you're excited about.
Buying 3.
Oh, my bad. I forgot we rebranded it.
I will watch because it's good content, and there's, you glean some stuff from there. But what do you expect? Like, do you expect this is what happened? You can see, because now we're showing practice film, that guys were they were playing the hokey pokey in practice, and they were going hip hip hooray.
Now that would be
a
something.
Long run.
If that was happening, that would be something.
I told you yesterday they should rename it to Buying 3.
Did you shoot that down the ladder, by the way?
Yeah,
it didn't go over well.
Timing is everything. That's just not the.
We'll let you know, Gary. Thanks for the call.
But the thing that, like, listening again yesterday, you had the coordinators talk, and then you had some players talk, and MJ Sherman said all the right things. Luke Gifford as well. I mean, if you're on that side of the ball, but this is one of the rare times against a team you think you can beat. Like, take Michigan last year aside. 2 days of listening to the head coach and everybody else that has followed on a podium, and around here we pick through everything somebody says.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this. I mean, we even look at body language, but I'm curious to see how guys deal with embarrassment, because they don't want to admit it out loud, but they were embarrassed. Okay. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with embarrassment if you're an 18 to 22-year-old and you're in charge of that football program because you got embarrassed on Friday night? You had an embarrassing performance that did not live up to your expectations. Now, how do you deal with being embarrassed?
I think you got that with John Bullock right after the game. I think those emotions were pretty evident. I think also the fact that you've had one more day of distancing from that defeat than you typically do when the players and the coaches, the coordinators that is speak, that like I thought Isaac Gifford, his response, just kind of getting away from it all was interesting. And that doesn't surprise me with him too, because he's the heartbeat, the voice of that defense. And he had a bad one. I mean, he had a bad one on Friday. I was curious about guys like Dylan yesterday. I was curious about
why were you
even
curious
Nash.
about him?
Just curious to see if his body language and what he verbalized sounded any different than after a win, and it didn't.
Yeah,
it really didn't.
That's a great sign.
Exactly.
So
I'm totally with you there.
I expected exactly everything I've heard from him.
Yeah, I was interested from that standpoint. Even Nash, for a guy that has gone through these types of moments, what his overall tone, body language. I think everybody was pretty consistent, including the coordinators themselves. I don't know if people expected Tony White to just be, absolute piss and vinegar during his podium session, but again, he did what we thought he would do. There was the ownership part of it.
Yeah, he sounded like a guy that was embarrassed.
Yeah.
He was embarrassed for his performance. He was embarrassed for the guys because they have a standard.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. It was okay. All right. Instead of, and there, there's coach speak in there. I get it. What do you want him to come out and say? Hey, we were absolute trash and we did this, this, and this. They said all the appropriate things, but how do you deal with embarrassment? Fortunately, you don't. Can you imagine? Imagine if Nebraska had their bye week this week.
Oh, no.
What that would be like around here?
Yeah,
that'd be miserable to sit on that side of the ball, to sit on that performance
Better go to Dallas twice
for 2 weeks. So at least they get a chance to have I don't know. I think maybe it's a pride game as well on Saturday.
No, there's no doubt, because it's, and I think it does help that they're on the road. I absolutely 100%. And I think, again, that was part of the message too, with a couple of guys of, how you handle the different parts of the elements of being on the road. I know Matt Rule even talked about it on Monday as far as, he looks forward to that. It's just them. You have that new element to the season with, some of the, like guys like Dylan and, some of your younger players on, okay, it's a road venue. What does that look like for you? To me, I think when you're coming off of a loss like that, or just a moment where, if you want to call it embarrassed or not playing to the standard, all of that, I think is probably safe to say that that's what they're feeling. I think a road game is actually, I think it's the best thing for them. Yeah, I think getting away from all of that, and it's you and the guy next to you. I know that was very, very cliche.
No,
but it's you and the guy next to you.
I'm with you on a road game, but it's also a team that's beat you 4 of the last 6 times.
Yep.
Nebraska's not in a position. We did this. We fast-forwarded this team. Okay, they're not ready to be fast-forwarded. They've lost 4 of 6 to Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Purdue got their nuts kicked in by Notre Dame and Oregon State. Still can run the football, right?
Yep.
I hope Jack.
Well, the guy who's been there for 8 years.
Still got a nice little 1-2 punch. And remember, they were 3rd in the Big Ten last year in rushing, and they've run the ball. They haven't done a lot of things well in the last 2 weeks, but they've run the ball well. But you've lost 4 of 6 to them, so you're not in a position to go, oh, phew, we got Purdue. Now, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to have as a prediction, but I listen to guys like Sip. I heard Sip on the afternoon show yesterday, and he's very cautiously optimistic about what's going to happen on Saturday. But I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair, because this is like a stage of, okay, how do these guys respond? How do they respond? Because now we've gone from beginning of the season, defense will be fine for 12 football games. Not sure about the offense with a freshman quarterback too. Oh, what if that defense screws over Dylan?
Mm-hmm.
Dylan puts up 24, and man, he's laying his life on the line for Nebraska football so much that he needs help. So he's bringing his brother in a couple of years, and that defense lets you down. Oh my God. So that's why I think it's a pride game on that side of the football, but it is a team you've lost to 4 of the last 6 times. And it's not like you've walked into West Lafayette and stolen Zach Eady's pancakes and left. Which, by the way, that's his NIL deal.
Pancakes.
Yes.
It's just so
for the big maple syrup guy.
Yeah, for the Canadian maple syrup. But it makes sense when you know. Here's the other part about why I would also echo the sentiments of feeling cautiously optimistic, because, okay, for 2 factors, This is where it's kind of that catch-22 of what we talked about in overtime. And I know, Satterfield tamped that down of it's not a jinx or anything like that. When it comes to overtime, it's a different set of guys, and it's all about, the execution, all that stuff. But we talked about the mental state of guys that have been in this program, that have been in those games, that have been in those close games, but especially overtime, that have seen some major thuds with that. And the good thing is, all right, you got a lot of new, fresh, young blood that has experienced that, so they don't know that, but you do have older guys that have. But on the flip side of it, what I think about this week is this is where I do think you take solace into having some veteran guys, because this is a group that, first of all, a lot of those guys defensively, like Ty, like Nash, Bullock, those guys stick around because they want to do something different. They want to see this program do something different from the time that they've been here. That you get into these environments, they've got that experience, they've got that pride, that every little attention to detail that Tony White talked about, whether it was the difference between the first play of the game or basically the same run in the first play of overtime. And that goes back to what Matt Rule said too, the why. We know how we lost, why. Those guys, I think, are going to take it upon themselves also. But I also think of this staff. This is where I go, the history of the staff. The one thing from last year is they typically responded very well. November, you put aside, November was a bad one. But as far as...
Did they?
I thought up until November they did.
Okay.
Okay. Up until November, when they had a bad one, they seemed to come back out. They responded okay. And it always felt like it wasn't like, oh, God, that team beat them. Like Minnesota, I don't think the Colorado game, I don't think Minnesota beat Nebraska in the Colorado game as well. And you had a team that typically, once they kind of got their footing, got a little bit of the home games and whatnot. The Michigan game was a great example of that. I think that's probably the most well-documented example of they just got humiliated against a team that was flat out better than them, more prepared, all of the things you could check the box into Michigan. There was no question that they were going to lose that game, but the way that they lost that game, the way they responded to that game, I thought was very encouraging. So, and that to me was a pride, even though it's a different type of team you lost to. That was something that took away your pride.
Tony White could have just said, "Just got to make plays."
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned this. I think I had to mention this to Sam or BC yesterday. The last 2 days, the head coach and his two coordinators hate the line of questioning.
You think Tony White did?
Yeah, because you know why? Tony White wants to talk about X's and O's.
Okay.
They don't want to talk about between the ears. Okay? Because that's been talked about a lot.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah.
And sometimes when you talk about it and you talk about it and you talk about it, you fall back on that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
These guys, like Rule did not want to go into the psychology of the thing that plagues Nebraska football is the past is dictating the present.
Mm-hmm.
And when does that happen that you say, not today? And he doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to talk about X's and O's. You can say, hey, we didn't do X, Y, and Z. We didn't get a guy here. We had bad run fit, so on. They don't want to talk about the mental part of it. They would like to talk about the football part of it. But welcome to Nebraska, where you guys have only been here for 2 years and you have something that looks familiar. And it's like the same damn movie I paid for so many different times and it has the same ending and I keep going to it.
Yeah.
That's what you get until you get over that.
Right. And you're right. Because
but you could just say, hey, sometimes guys got to go make plays. I mean, football is simple. So we can overthink things. Go make plays. You are in a position for a reason. You're on scholarship for a reason. You've earned your spot. You've earned playing time. Sometimes guys just got to make plays. And that's what football kind of comes down to.
But I also understand why the questions are asked at times.
Oh yeah, I'm not against the questions because that's all part of trying to figure out the why. But if you're a football coach and you're at Nebraska and your next door neighbor and then the guy that lives on the other side of the fence that peers over to check you out and see what the whites are doing has every friggin' stat imaginable about one score losses and overtime.
I'm really curious if that actually happens.
Yeah.
Hey, coach, can we talk?
It does.
I just got done mowing.
It's like Mr. Wilson.
Hey, neighbor.
I'm like, oh my God, Tim Allen lives in my neighborhood.
With a stat sheet.
Yeah.
He's got a spreadsheet. No, okay. So you made me think of when I said even Tony White, but to as you elaborated on that, there were 2 times yesterday that Tony White said, that's a really good question. But it was one of them was the difference between scheme, teachable moments, what they learned from the Illinois game plan. And he really got into that. Then talking about, like, I think explaining the time to bring Sierra Wright off the edge makes the play. There were a couple of moments where, he kind of perked up of, that's a good question. When he said another good question, Satterfield, and the overtime thing, I think it was insinuated because I don't remember the question verbatim, but I remember the question where Satterfield kind of volunteered this is not a fluke, this is not a curse in overtime. But I don't think the question was necessarily that. I think it was the mindset of what did you want to do as far as that sequence of plays, maybe how the penalties set you back and how did that change things. Like, to me, that's what I think the question was. And, as he talked about everybody, not just a guy who, has a false start or one guy who misses a block, but all 11 guys, being in sync. I get what he's trying to say, but then he also went there without, I think, even being coaxed to go there. So when I hear that and what you just said there, I'm with you that they don't want to talk about that because they know.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
They know it's there.
Talk about pulling out a victory.
Yes.
Like snatching a victory from the jaws of defeat.
Well, and I think that's probably the source of
Reaching
frustration.
down into the mammal's mouth.
Because I think that's what they're
pulling
trying
it
to hammer through those guys is, guys, I don't give a crap what happened in now it's 28 plays of minus 21 yards. I don't care what happened in the previous 24 plays. If you do your job, you do your job. And we're not talking about it.
I also think the last 2 days, this is my reaction to this, is it does show the expectations are much higher for this football team. Just by the expectations
Which
and the
is
reaction
good.
by fans. No, I'm not saying it's not. It just, you should be able to glean that from the reaction of people, because in the past it'd be like, okay, they're 3-1. Oh, they're 3-1. All right, you got the lineup. Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel a little bit later on the show. Plus a new stadium coming to Lincoln. Was announced last night on the Troy Dannon show. That's his words, not mine. We will get into that and much more. Plus the weekend of college football, where there's a huge game and there's going to be a popular guy that's going to be there, who I wouldn't mind watching a game with that role. What president would you want to watch a college football game with? President Trump's going to be at the Georgia-Alabama game. Think about that. You can always join us on the 42 Degree The Source hotline, 402-951-1620, or in the Equitable Bank inbox, where they take banking personally. And hello, somebody that works for that fine organization, help the man that is the president. Oh my. Old Man Doug has arguably one of the top 5 calls of all time in the history of this radio station, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary yesterday into Connor and Josh. Somebody help that man with technology. Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620.
Also on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620.
And Nick Handley 1620.
All right, we got some calls, some discussion. It's the middle of the week. It's Purdue. We will break down the Boilermakers as well. And I just want to leave you with this bit of advice as we go to the first break. It ain't easy being a cowboy and a coach on 1620 The Zone. You guys listen to Doug?
No, I didn't hear it. No. Was on.
You got it. You got it. All right, the college athletic wheel of news never stops spinning. 2 days ago, it was about realignment and the Mountain West and the Pac-12, and then the Pac-12 sued the Mountain West. Today is a major story that is going to get really, really interesting. What if I told you an undefeated college football team ranked in the top 30, the AP poll, just lost their starting quarterback?
Yeah, he couldn't have done this like 2 weeks ago.
Because of an NIL dispute, Jimmy. So the UNLV starting quarterback has elected to redshirt because of a promise that was not made. And I immediately think, ooh, was there a promise made by another school? Hey, redshirt, so you don't lose that year. We'll take care of you.
He's a good quarterback.
UNLV, hello. We'll see what the NCAA does with this. But this opens up Pandora's box. We'll get into this as we move through the morning. But let's start the morning with Andrew on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good. How are you doing? You should be very excited because your college basketball team begins practice today.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And it's going to be an interesting year on that front. A lot of new pieces.
Yes, the baby birds. I'll be curious to see which one of the baby birds makes the regular rotation.
I think there could be two, possibly. And one red shirts, maybe.
Your two would be, your one would be plus Jackson McAndrew. That would be.
And guard Johnson. Is his name Johnson?
Yes.
Yes. I could see, or at least him seeing some meaningful playing time.
Yep.
And the other guard that we have, I think he needs to probably put some more meat on his body. Same with McAndrews. They all, when they all come in,
a little
they need to get a little bit of meat on their bones. But
yeah, they need to take them. They need to eat more. Let it fly. They're not let it fly enough.
They got a good
or
national
they need to go
chicken
down to McDonald's right down the street.
Yeah, I would. Hey, Andrew, I've driven by the McDonald's when it's dark outside. I would not advise a Creighton basketball player going in there. I wouldn't advise you to go in there late at night unless you got Kevlar.
Yeah, I don't advise my son to go down there. But anyways, so in some programs we talk about, winning is ingrained, in the program. Is losing kind of ingrained in Nebraska football's program now, close games, where it's just what it is. And until you get 4 years away from it and you have all new players, you have to get those players out before you can really turn the culture.
No, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
No, that's fair when you look at like Friday night, who some of your best players were. They were guys that maybe just arrived or haven't been here that long. It creeps into the back of your head. It's been a problem, is knowing how to finish and how to win and find the make the right play and show up at the right time to win games like that. No, I think that's absolutely fair. That's the balance if you're Matt Rule of I just got here. My quarterback just got here. Some other guys just came here. This is their first year. They don't know that in close games you're supposed to lose, or in overtime you're not supposed to be able to move the ball or stop the ball. And then you have older guys who are like, man, here we go again. No, I think this is human nature.
And I've got now I'm going to switch it back to basketball.
All right.
I think for the Jays, it's probably maybe a Sweet 16 or a bust this year. I think they should at least make it to Sweet 16.
Okay.
And if I'm to be honest, that's as far as I think they can go.
All right.
Because they're so young. And if I'm Nebraska basketball, kudos on a recruit they just got. I think he was a 4-star guard. I don't know where he's from. But anyways, do you think they make the tournament this year?
Andrew, thanks for the phone call. So bracketology yesterday. College basketball should start later. But bracketology yesterday, so they have Creighton as a 3 seed. Not a surprise.
Yeah.
Very, very excited to see Pop Isaacs play, but also I want to see the development of an offseason of Jason Green.
Mm-hmm.
You got to account for Baylor Shireman was a dude.
Yep.
Baylor Shireman took care of a lot of things that were wrong. So you have to account for that, and that's not easy. But you still got Kalkbrenner. I mean, Jesus, if I start with the team and I got one of the best defensive players in the country standing in the middle of the floor, I'm okay with that. So Creighton is a 3. Nebraska was first 4 out.
Yep, and that's been consistent throughout the offseason. Yeah.
If Nebraska can find a way to get to 8-9 in a expanded Big Ten, if they could be 500 in the Big Ten, and I'm trying to figure out Nebraska because they have interesting pieces, but they have a lot of pieces that are going to have to fit together. I think this is one of their deeper and better across the board front courts that Fred has had, but they have to have a lot of things come together. I think they'll shoot it. I mean, a lot of enticing things, but can they go back-to-back years where they avoid a major in-season injury and they get momentum like they did last year and they get on a little bit of heater? I think the expectations will be Nebraska needs to be knocking on the door once again to get to the NCAA tournament. And I mean, I don't care what, I don't want to say that. I don't care. I don't want to fast forward to March, but back-to-back trips to the NCAA tournament, you'd take that.
Oh, absolutely.
You'd take that.
And
because they're an older team, they might be able to handle the ups and downs of a new Big Ten.
Well, and you said intrigue of, I think the versatility that could exist with this team. And I've been on record. I might be proven wrong because, again, I'm still a guy who thought Tyreek Johnson was going to be amazing for Nebraska football. But I love the Connor Essegian addition because I think he is a pure shooter. And I think in this offense that's going to serve him well. I think Gavin Griffiths is also another very interesting addition to this team, a guy that's also played in the Big Ten as well, gets it a little bit. I mean, so does Connor Essegian. But you mentioned what they have with the front court. You have kind of a rink-masked guy. You have more of a rim protector in Mia Berke.
Mia, by the way, is a giant human being.
Yeah, he looks very,
he
very
was,
long.
He was at, I saw him on a football game against Northern Iowa. That's a large man.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a mullet, Mr. Morgan. They are definitely going to have a team which you look at the team picture and you're like,
who are these effing guys?
All right.
But having that flexibility, if you want to call it, or just depth options at the front court is going to be really interesting to see if that is what Nebraska is missing now. And you also have to count, what you lost with Casey and his shooting, but can you get that in a combination with the addition of Essegian?
I think Essegian will.
And Griffiths.
I think Essegian will shoot it well in this offense.
So, and then Bryce Williams, obviously a lot of it is on how he takes over. But I would say this, it maybe sounds very, very obvious. It's a very intriguing team, though, with all of the pieces that they've brought in compared to what they lost. And you also still have a Juwan Gary, who's a big part of this team as well. So there's some key guys back, but the additions, I think, from the front court to the back court are extremely intriguing on how this could actually work in a Fred Hoiberg system.
Because this has turned into a little basketball segment here. If I gave you in the first week of practice, so Creighton or Nebraska and Omaha got going the other day. Creighton starts today. If I just said, hey, you're going to have to play the games because you're required to, and people buy tickets and all that fun stuff, that Creighton's going to be a 3 and Nebraska will go into the Big Ten tournament on the bubble. Would you take that right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
And and I saw Lenardi had South Dakota State projected. Tell you what, there's some, I don't call it pressure. It's pressure to get the NCAA tournament this year at 60th and Dodge.
At least playing in that final game of the Summit League Championship.
I don't want to be playing in a final game. Done that twice.
Yeah.
It's time to go to the NCAA tournament if you're Omaha men's basketball. And they are an older team in a league that is in a little bit of a transition because South Dakota State will not have the star power that they used to.
So where Omaha, and for what you're saying there too, knowing the Summit League slate a lot better. What the Summit League typically has, South Dakota State, sometimes North Dakota State. We saw Oral Roberts
South
too.
Dakota will be good this year. Oral Roberts will be okay. Kansas City probably will be the preseason favorite in the league.
Okay.
But Omaha's got I mean, they got a lot of depth. This is the most athletic I've seen an Omaha team in a while in terms of depth, and they're an older team, and they've made some nice additions. They can score the basketball because they've changed their defense.
Yeah.
It could be a fun winter over at 67th and Center.
God, that'd be awesome.
Maybe this will be the year that all three make the NCAA tournament.
Oof. Can you imagine that, though? And we were...
Well, one team I know for sure will make the NCAA tournament.
And
unless the wheels come off and they drop the program.
Think they'd do that in
this
year?
I tell you what, I know enough people.
I know Baylor's gone, but come on now.
They'd be very upset if Creighton all of a sudden decided to drop men's basketball. They'd be like, dang.
They just invested and put Mac's name on buildings. Come on now.
Have you not seen the tuition I pay for my kids to go there?
And then next year, Mornings with Sharp and Mac. Because he's not going to leave Omaha, at least not yet. Well, he's going to have to do something.
Well, he's got names on buildings right now. This was interesting, though, what Andrew brought up about Creighton. If you think it's the Sweet 16 or bust, but that's as far as they can go. If you're making the Sweet 16, isn't your ceiling greater than that? I would like to think if you're a Sweet 16 team, and I don't, the bracketology as a 3 seed is what it is. We'll see how this, all plays out and how they handle. Again, I think that the biggest question of the loss of Baylor Shireman, but if there's a team that looks like they are, they're a second weekend team. I would think if you're a second weekend team, you have every bit of shot of making the final weekend.
Yeah. How about we just start with making the NCAA tournament? Everybody'd like to have Nebraska win a game. How about just making the tournament for the second straight year? That would be a gigantic step for this program.
A big question, though. Okay, and you're right. No, there's.
But I don't want to fast forward to March. When you make it, then you can go, okay, who are we playing? Just back-to-back years where on a Sunday they've convened in Hoiberg's house to drink wine and eat barbecue and watch the selection show. That would be a huge step for Nebraska basketball. I mean, we're talking Nebraska basketball, right?
Yeah. I'm always curious of this for what the scenario you just laid out there, because there was a little bit of that built in. Ooh, okay, Texas A&M too. You've got a decent seed. You're wearing white at the NCAA tournament.
It was a horrible matchup.
It wasn't a good matchup.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it's all about matchups, as Lenardi and Andy Katz tell me.
Well, and just like in
Andy
2014,
Katz dogging on Nebraska basketball has them in the bottom tier.
Yeah.
What does he feel like, Sean?
He used to really like.
Yeah,
Nebraska
well,
too.
he doesn't. He holds it against Nebraska for getting rid of Miles, because Miles was his guy. Miles gave him a ton of information, and he made it personal. And so he's like hit or miss on Nebraska.
Well, 2 years ago, though, even it wasn't I think he might have had Nebraska. Oh, he did last year in pretty early in the season. He had him in his top 30, but the year before, he and Doctorman were really riding the lookout for Fred's team this year. Look out for Fred's team. So he has been. Maybe that loss to Texas A&M just completely, totally made him lose faith. But in 2014, horrible matchup as well with Baylor. That if you get to the NCAA tournament again, which I would agree with you, Gary, that is huge. That's awesome, consecutive years in the NCAA tournament. But if they were to lose too, you know what the conversation.
That's good. We can say that for March when spring football is going on, and we're wondering if Raul will win the Heisman as a sophomore. One thing though about Nebraska basketball, and it's the Fred Hoiberg is going in to get his the batteries replaced in the pacemaker, which is from my cardiologist that I know out there, because I asked. They said it's a normal procedure.
Yeah.
It's just, the batteries have like a 10-year.
Yes.
I mean, a lifeline.
Yeah, I have a friend who's younger than Fred that has the same thing.
So it's a very normal procedure. Yeah. And when Fred said he'll be back on the court on Monday, you're like, oh, okay. But you never know. So fingers crossed. But can we just for a moment step back and go, Nebraska basketball? Well, more Fred Hoiberg. He just happens to coach at Nebraska. Guy who has a pacemaker is on the sidelines coaching. And it can be scary. Remember Bob Huggins?
Yep.
So Bob Huggins' pacemaker, it had a little glitch. And remember, he went down to a knee during a game his last year at West Virginia.
Yep.
And you're like, whoa. And then he recovered. I will tell you, one of the times I've interacted with Fred, the one moment where he was talking about his pacemaker, he showed on his chest.
Here, feel it.
And I was like, oh.
Can we talk about this? Is it okay? Are you cool with this?
You're in a very stressful job.
Yeah.
It's just, the modern medicine,
But
wonders of modern medicine, that you can just basically put something that is a battery pack in your chest to make your heart pump. Holy cow.
Well, and isn't that's part of the Fred overall presence as a coach is he's extremely calm, always even keel, whether they win a big game or they lose and just get embarrassed, that he still, like when he actually raises his voice a little bit, you're kind of like, whoa. And I've always wondered how much of that is just Fred, from the time of being a competitor, always had that ability to be even keel, which is a gift. And how much of that is doctor's orders, like, bro, you gotta be this way. This is how you have to be. Because I remember, in years past here, people are like, God, I just wish he'd show more emotion after a loss. Like, well, A, he doesn't. That's not Fred. But B, I don't think he really can. It's not good for him.
If you're wearing stripes and you're working at Pinnacle Bank Arena and the crowd gets on you, Fred will show some emotion. You think they go to Batteries Plus? Like, hey, we'll do the surgery, but you got to provide your own batteries. You stop at Batteries Plus and get a battery for your pacemaker.
He doesn't work for us.
And you're like, wait a minute, this thing doesn't seem to be functioning. Oh yeah, well you got to get the batteries.
Batteries are extra. Insurance doesn't pay for it.
Yeah,
radio insurance.
Now you can go the more expensive battery route. It's going to give you a longer last, but if you want a cheaper option, I mean these will get you by for a couple of years.
That's medicine, man. That's just wild. Of all the stuff you can do with the human heart to fix it.
Yeah.
And just, either you put a new one in or you just put a battery pack in.
Yep.
And when the batteries go low and it starts to beep, like your chest starts beeping.
Right.
It's like when your fire alarm.
Freak me out. That would freak me out.
Your smoke detector starts to go down and starts to beep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's when your batteries start to go low in the pacemaker, it starts to beep. And people are like looking around. You're in a room. And you're like,
what is that?
Yeah, and they're like,
so got an Amber Alert?
Somebody is beeping.
Oh man,
it must be 10 years.
Nick could be like, that's me. I can't finish the show. Got to get my battery fixed.
Jimmy's got a quick update coming up next. More on what's ahead for Nebraska, and I guess now we've turned into a basketball show. Is that what the loss to Illinois has done to everybody?
Yeah, I didn't
skip
see
ahead
this.
to basketball season.
Maybe you got a few of these messages on Twitter. I was waiting to get the first. Tell me when basketball season starts. I'm done with this.
Why can't I
seen it too many times,
folks?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Fifth
I know.
game.
I know. I didn't see that. That's what I'm saying. Maybe you did.
Fifth game.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth game.
I gotta admit though, Gary. I thought I'd see it.
12.
I thought I'd see
it's the fifth game. And what y'all gonna say if Illinois goes to State College and upsets Penn State?
Give me back my OC.
Oh, yeah. There will be a lot of anger if that happens. Jimmy's got an update next on 1620 The Zone.
Despite a raucous atmosphere last Friday night, as if they were expecting anything else at Nebraska's Memorial Stadium, the school's not looking for a repeat event. Sorry to those of you that are used to the Friday night games. Troy Dannon says last night to be specific, he sent a letter to Tony Petitti requesting that Nebraska no longer hosts Friday night games other than its traditional Black Friday contest against Iowa. Dannon, speaking on the network last night, said he wrote the letter with support from University Chancellor Rodney Bennett, University of Nebraska Assistant President Jeffrey Gold. Nebraska canceled in-person classes Friday to the dismay of many college students who were just hoping to go to school to allow students to prepare for the game against Illinois. Prepare in quotations, which drew the school's 400th consecutive sellout. Dannon said Nebraska would accept further Friday night games and that he didn't like other Big Ten schools laying their foot down about no weeknight games. Stay tuned-ish. The Storm Chasers got do or die tonight. They strand 11 runners fall in game one of their playoff series with Columbus 3-2. They do it again tonight at 6:35. After leading Creighton to 2 wins over top 10 opponents over the weekend, this is volleyball, by the way, setter Kendra Waite was named National Player of the Week by the ABCA. She averaged just under 14 assists, just under 4 digs, and a block and a half, essentially, during wins over Purdue and Kansas at the Jayhawk Classic. Omaha Hockey is ranked 15th in the USCHO preseason top 20. The Mavs finished last season number 12, posting a 23-13-4 record while qualifying for the NCAA Tournament. They begin the season October 5th with a home exhibition against 10th-ranked Wisconsin. You heard about Matthew Sluka, the starting quarterback for the undefeated UNLV Runnin' Rebs. He announced on the social media last night he won't play in any more games this season. He instead will use his redshirt year if you're looking for a quarterback. He has completed 21 of 48 for 318 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's also rushed 39 times for 286 yards and a score. Don't I know that? Florida A&M University has postponed its upcoming game against Alabama A&M because of soon-to-be Hurricane Helene. The Rattlers rescheduled the game for Friday, November 29th in anticipation of the hurricane, not from Miami, strengthening into a major hurricane while moving north towards the United States. Several models have it making landfall just south of Tallahassee, as if enough bad things haven't happened in Tallahassee this fall. Add a hurricane to it. Wonder Miami plays there later this year. The Padres clinch a playoff berth with a 5-4-3 triple play at Dodger Stadium with Shohei Ohtani on deck. The Orioles clinch a playoff berth as well, but without a triple play. Finally, once down 10 games, the Astros clinch their 4th straight American League West title with a 4-3 win over the Seattle Mariners, completing their collapse last night, overcoming a terrible start to reach the playoffs for an 8th consecutive year. They're the first team to win the AL West in 4 straight seasons since Oakland. Remember them? They used to have a team, won 5 times in a row from 5 years in a row. From 1971 to 75, it's the first time they've won 4 consecutive division titles after winning 3 in a row on 2 previous occasions, 97-99 and 17-19. And it's the 7th AL West crown at 8 seasons for the Astros. The only time they were beaten out of that stretch was the 2020 season. We don't talk about that. Don't count. Houston limped to a 7-19 record. It was over. They trailed Seattle by a season high of 10 games. They were going to contract and bring back the Expos, but then they rallied, won their next 7 to start a 13-2 stretch, and they improved to 46-42. Hate us because they ain't us. We'll see what happens next month.
Thanks, Jimmy. So UNLV is 3-0. They are ranked first time since 1984. They are 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
Their starting quarterback, who you just rattled off his stats, who you saw in person, UNLV beat KU.
Good dude, tough too.
Matthew Sluka.
Holy Cross.
Is leaving. And I'm okay with this. Now, there's probably more to the story that'll slowly come out. Now, I reserve the right to change this if there is tampering involved, because get the F out of my program. I don't want you. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You're dead to me. But if he is doing this because there were some things in the NIL world that were promised and they've not come to fruition, and I don't think he just woke up and said, guys, I'm bailing on you.
Yeah.
This has probably been well known internally and has been discussed. Mm-hmm. Hey, he's standing up for principle. If they made a commitment to him and they promised him things and they haven't come through, and again, there's probably been deep discussions about this, not just, okay, I guess I'm upset on Monday, I'm quitting on Tuesday, or I'm making the decision to redshirt. I'm for it because I've heard this before. This happened at Nebraska before 1890 got involved. There were promises made to players that didn't come through until there was pressure put by a dad or a representative in the athletic director's office. Okay? This is the There's the good of the NIL, and then there's some bad. So I don't have a problem with him doing this. I have a problem if it comes out that he was enticed by some other program and he was tampered with, and they said, shut her down, and we'll take care of you next year.
This is a huge deal. This is really a huge deal because if that scenario plays out, that takes the whole tampering thing to a new level, which you mentioned open up Pandora's box earlier. Well, then there's that part of it that also opens up Pandora's box where you are getting to a kid early and you are able to influence them enough with an NIL deal to say, hey, you haven't gone over the 4-game threshold here, so you're good. Because as we know, Suluka's a senior. He's played 4 years at Holy Cross. So that part of it wouldn't shock me if that has something to do with it. But based on what is being reported, this is holding collectives accountable. And if we're going to play this game, that's the thing, though. If we're going to play this game where whether you're going to skirt the scholarship allotment and say, hey, we're bringing you in on basically an NIL deal, an NIL scholarship. So it's going to not only pay for your school, but it's going to give you X amount of dollars, whatever was agreed upon. And it's not fulfilled. And I thought it was interesting what he said about based on discussions, it was not going to be fulfilled. To me, and again, this is what I'm imagining, is there was a number. It was clear that there was stuff coming in that wasn't going to be close to that number, and you start asking questions. So as you're going through the season itself, you're wondering, okay, is this going to be resolved? And then you realize that they're not even come close to that number, that they're going to maybe try to, hey, well, there's this and there's this. We can make it close. You can be within spitting distance of this and this, and we can do this for you. But it wasn't what was agreed upon. And, for a lot of these guys, especially whether you're a grad transfer, you're someone that has 2 years of eligibility, that there are other programs that want you, and you decide, hey, based on not only going to your school, being in Vegas, come on, kind of sweet, but also what you promised and what we agreed upon, that you're not even come near that. Let's hold them accountable, man.
I think this is great. I think this is a moment in college football and on NIL that I'm glad that has arrived right now. The 70s and 80s fan going to get on me, and they're going to be like, this is ruining the sport I love. You know what? When they tore down the original Orange Bowl, it ruined the sport.
Rest in peace, OB.
Okay.
Nobody come into the OB and push him around.
Again, he's going to redshirt and transfer. The good collectives, not going to worry about. No. The bad collectives, this is going to happen. And I think this is now going to start something
new normal,
where more players will make it public that their promises are not coming through. Yeah. So remember, we live in a world of college football. And as a stodgy guy, I've learned to adapt. It's been tough, but this is now we all have to change. We have to adapt. We may not like it, but this is the new age of college football. Has unrestricted transfer. You have yearly NIL. Perpetual free agency doesn't exist in other sports, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. But it does in college athletics. Yeah. And this was only a matter of time before a player. I mean, what if a team, they've been promised, a free runza, and the Nebraska players don't get the runza, and they've wanted a runza, and all of a sudden they're hungry because the training table is closed on the weekends. Okay.
And they're seeing the students wearing the runza hats.
Yeah. And they're starving. And what if they say, we're out? What about the player that demands stuff? Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, to keep you, we got to give you this. And then they don't come through. Here's probably one of the better ways to describe how I'm looking at this. And it's from this standpoint. Think about all of us that work in a business. Okay. We like to be paid. We like to be taken care of. We've lost some good people in the media industry in this town because they want $2,000 more. Mm-hmm. And their company says, sorry. So they go somewhere else. Yep. But what if your boss said, hey, you got a 5% raise coming when we get to the new fiscal year.
Yeah.
And that new fiscal year comes around and you haven't been paid. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's say it's June. Okay. I was promised a 5% raise. I look at my paycheck in June because now I'm budgeting. I got a family.
Exactly.
I'm budgeting.
Yes.
I got a family. Got to put food on the table. I got to take them to Disneyland. And it's April. It's not there. Then we get to May. It's not there. What are you going to do? One, you're going to go, hey, they missed something.
Is this an accounting error?
But I was promised this.
Yep.
Here's some Vallis.
Now, was I promised it in writing? Was I promised it just as a verbal? Who knows? But I'm trying to, then what are you going to do? You're probably going to be like, peace, I'm out. Love the company.
Yeah.
Would have loved that 5% raise, but you promised it to me. Now it's gone. I got nothing. You guys haven't come through on your promise. And I planned for that.
Yes.
Okay. I joined your company, or I stuck with your company when I could have moved somewhere else.
Right. And that's
Been there.
by doing so I think it's a good example. By doing so in your analogy there, that is not an easy decision for that employee to make because of what you're leaving. And when you hold a company accountable for failure to fulfill their commitment to you or fulfill their promise to you, whether it's contractually or agreed upon in some way, shape, or form, you're holding them accountable. And you are putting yourself in a situation of, I know I don't have the next gig lined up, but I can't do this. I mean, they're stringing me along. They're probably giving me the song and dance. That's why, again, if this is on its face, what is being reported by Sluka, I would think that this was something that was already starting to become a concern even before, hell, maybe even fall camp started, that you're wondering, okay, is this commitment going to be fulfilled? And you're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I have a tough time believing this. And maybe this is where I'm completely naive to the modern day athlete when what motivates them. But I'd like to think when you're still a Division I athlete, that your team, that bond, everything that you go through together means a lot to you. And when you come to the conclusion that you no longer can be with them, that it's probably not like, oh, they missed a $100 payment that was supposed to be made. Or I feel like either the player himself, and again, maybe we'll find this out later. Either the player himself is moving the goalposts, or they have been way off on their promise. And the other part about this is, because you brought up.
By the way, can you guys hear that? Can you hear the movement? Can you hear that? Can you hear it? Hear it? See me on 1620 The Zone TV? Boys, the Power 2 has gotten here sooner than later.
Yeah.
And the extinction of lower non-Power 2, I can hear it. I can hear it. I think the plates are moving in California.
And that's okay. And that's exactly what I was going to get to right there is you're going to have schools that are established NIL. Like you said, they're not going to worry about this, but it's the schools that feel the pressure. Hey, we can compete, we can contend, we can win some games, we can look good within our own conference, but we still need to be competitive with our collective. So let's worry about the execution part of it later. Let's just get the athletes here. Let's fill those key spots that we need on the roster. We will put something out there, very exciting NIL deal. Hell, maybe the first couple of months of that deal, whatever their obligations are, we're paying that. Then eventually we'll kind of kick the can down the road a little bit further, because once the player is here, they're not going to get up and leave. They're not going to leave. They're not going to do that. And then when someone calls you out and does that, then you got a problem there. You got a major problem there.
Negative split swimming on Twitter. It's the Chevy Chase case of getting Fruit of the Month Club versus a bonus.
Exactly. The jelly of the month, but still.
Keeps on giving.
Dino on the stream. I like Dino. And he's right. The model is broken. The further magnifies the point that there are haves and have-nots in college football. This will happen only to the smaller schools who have zero chance to keep up. Time for a new division. Yeah. Thank you. I agree. Here, listen. I look at TV ratings, the Big Ten and the SEC. I look at monster matchups, Big Ten, SEC.
What'd you give?
And some say I don't have good hearing, but I can hear it moving a little bit more.
What'd you give Nebraska, Illinois expectations?
Google Vision helped everything
on Friday night.
Yeah, I was off by a mil.
3.
Yeah.
No, but that's still a good number.
Sometime when I'm
over.
Sometimes I'm off on inches. I usually underperform on the inches, and then I like, whoa, it's a lot larger. So that's kind of what the TV audience was. I said at least 3. They did 4.2.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to.
You should always under-deliver.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you over,
yeah,
then you just look like a god, man, when you're performing.
Now the other part of this is if there is tampering involved, and he can still go somewhere. What does the NCAA do? Does anybody care? Will this be remembered when you look on the transition wire in December and Matthew Sluka transfers to Auburn?
That would be a Hugh Freeze type of thing.
Again, maybe we ought to have just trades. Trades in the middle of the year.
It's coming.
Okay.
So
he's disgruntled. We didn't come through. But you know what? We got a good asset here. He's a quarterback of a 3-0 team. Guys, we're not going to tank. You know what? You're off to a great start.
We're going to flip him.
But if we're going to get our return on investment, it is the time to sell.
Yes.
The stock is hot. Hey, Auburn, you need a quarterback. We need a new stadium.
Yeah, UNLV, you need a donation. Exactly. So it's funny you bring that up because I was having.
Now I'm just.
No, Gary.
Some people have said, you are crazy. I do this in little tongue in cheek.
Yes.
So thank you.
But is it that crazy?
Exactly. Okay. It's
of everything that's
happening.
It
still is crazy, but wouldn't you guys agree that we are closer to that happening now than we were 5 years ago?
I think take Matthew Sluka out of this, and whether he's a good quarterback or not. Promises not kept, promises unfilled in schools that the collective is willy-nilly. They finally got called on the carpet. I've alluded to it. I'm going to go there. Casey Thompson was promised a certain deal when he got to Nebraska. It wasn't coming through. Charles Thompson shows up in Trev's office. There have been other fathers that played college football in the Big 8 or the Big 12 that either have a connection to Nebraska or not, that have been promised stuff that show up in the 80s office going, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. Marcus Washington, remember him?
Yep.
So they put together a deal for him to come from Texas. He gets off the plane in Lincoln. Whatever his deal was, he was supposed to be paid before he got here. He hadn't gotten anything. He was about ready to pull the chute and go and leave.
Yep.
So there's that part of it, and that has been taken care of at the University of Nebraska. I will give you an example of how this is supposed to work, and I'll use an in-state athlete that had a decision to make, and an NIL package was put together for him to stay in-state and play college athletics. It was a rather robust package for him to stay. And they've already met the obligation. And there wasn't any, I don't know if I'm going to get my money. Mm-hmm. He didn't have to worry about it because who he was dealing with, he knew that they would take care of him. This is not good for UNLV of somebody that's coming there and all of a sudden they go, well, now this is the portion of the tour we'd like to talk to you about NIL. And you go, hey, didn't your quarterback, didn't you guys promise him like, a fancy car or at least like a commercial while he's walking down the strip?
Right.
So take Sluka out of it, but the poorly constructed NILs where you're so desperate to win and compete and stay relevant, you get exposed and you get put on the carpet. And now this is what's happened.
Well, and
I hope this is, and we're not talking about tampering because the tampering part, the problems with the NIL is going to magnify what we talked about and the whole thing being like, Jesus, we're all over the place. Perpetual free agency is not working.
Well, and that's the part of where the story is on its face, because you're right. If this is a tampering thing, well, that's another story. The whole where did NIL now player revenue share? Where did all that start? You go all the way back to
damn Ed O'Bannon,
exactly, and
friggin' video game,
and people perceiving the and I'll use their word, not mine, because I still think there's value in what these student athletes did receive, but the exploitation of student athletes. They use the word exploitation. When you think of NIL, you're thinking, well, hell, they're getting paid, man. So you can't cry exploitation anymore because they're getting paid for their name, image, likeness. They're now having the same freedoms that regular students have to earn their money.
You can boo them on Saturday and you don't feel bad because they're getting paid.
Because they're getting paid.
Some people are having that discussion, by the way.
I know. Well, I know.
I've been reading.
Dion has some thoughts on that too.
Shocker.
But the part
he gave Ohtani his props yesterday. All right.
Well, that's good.
Hey, the Colorado Tuesday press conferences are.
I miss Mike Leach.
I just needed that to be part of the opening statement of not only the win and the numbers that they were able to handle in their win against Baylor, but also Ohtani going 6 for 6.
Hey, Father Jindra, forgive me for I have lied. I said I would quit Colorado after the Colorado game. I can't quit Colorado.
We knew you wouldn't.
I watch their Tuesday stuff.
Don't apologize.
It's good for your health.
You have to watch the whole thing because a lot of them just are the sound bites of something of interest.
That's going to get.
But if you watch the whole thing, his Tuesday press conferences are wild.
Yeah,
man, the stuff that is talked about, not like anything that you would be uncomfortable about,
right?
But they go everywhere. Like yesterday, he got talking about Ohtani, and I was like, wow, such disrespect to UCF.
It's like, I will worry about them later. I'm going to talk about Ohtani, two-way players. The exploitation part of it, though, that I don't think people, I don't want to say they're uncomfortable talking about because now, hey, they're getting there so we can move on. Because I think that was the biggest thing is fans especially, if this is going to happen, okay, let's just move on so we can enjoy our Saturdays and watch these games. There is that element, especially at places like UNLV or Group of 5 type teams that feel the pressure, feel the burden, whether it's, hey, we want to get that facility upgrade, but we got to have a better product on the field, or, hey, there's money and there's incentive bonuses for me as a coach. If I'm getting us to a bowl game or winning conference titles, we got to get the Jimmies and the Joes. All right, well, our collective is a little disorganized. It's a little scattered, but who's to say we can't get these guys here? We promise them something. We give them a little bit. We wet their beak a little bit. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to doing that on a consistent basis, we're not holding up our end. But you know what? We already got him here. And can you tell me that a student athlete, once he's ingrained within the program and the culture and his brothers, that he's actually going to leave, he's really going to do that? To me, that's exploitation too.
Hey, what I admitted, if I was promised a raise here and I didn't get it, I don't care if I like you guys or not. Man, I got to make a decision that's best for myself.
I totally agree with that.
College athletics was better when it was just the hot tub controversy of Lloyd Daniels. And you could just pay players out of your pocket.
Former Spurs great.
People may not agree with me, but maybe it was better when we could just be all under the table stuff.
Yes, when you knew it was happening, but you didn't. It was just one of those things like, we know it's happening, but we don't talk about it.
Instead of having to pay for a student athlete to get into a hot tub with you, you could just get into a hot tub and maybe there's some cash that is involved. Okay? And there's no paper trail.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a part of this whole system that, and wherever, I'll be really curious because there's no way UNLV is just sitting on this and like, I mean, they've got to respond to this. I'm sure it will be something to save face. There'll be it's not what you think it is, but
going to hurt their chances getting to the Big 12, Jimmy. Maybe that's why they haven't gone to a conference. They knew this was coming out.
Like, we're gonna hold off a little bit. It's kind of been a bad week for them, by the way. They had that commitment to the Mountain West Conference with the
we'll F them
with the belief that all the other schools were committed. Then they're not. Now they're like, I don't know what to do. And then you hear this story too. It's like,
hey man,
for a team that is off to a good start, not a good week.
UNLV comes here to play Creighton. I hope the heckling is really good. Like, how much you getting paid? We can pay you more.
There'll just be a big sign of, like, instead of signs, will just be big checks. Your name here.
Hey, nice fade. I see they didn't come through in those free barbershop visits. We got our own barbershop here on the Creighton campus. All right, 31 past the hour. A little bit later, Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel will join us. Love the sport though. It never ends. Like we are now less than 2 weeks from Conference USA and MAC taking over our Tuesdays where we get to actually watch a game. Mm-hmm. But until then, when we don't have games in the early part of the week, we get conference realignment. And then we get a UNLV quarterback that probably until this morning, most people didn't know who he was.
Yeah, you probably watched the Kansas game.
Has maybe pushed that house of cards a little bit closer to falling down. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Pisa. I'm glad you said that.
He said it right.
A lot of people think it's pizza.
Oh, I know the difference.
Okay. Good.
Somehow it's going to turn into a pizza ranch discussion again.
All right. Which Husker is next? 951.
I just thought of that. What if that's announced today? Oh, it's a domino effect.
Hey, when it was 3 letters instead of 4 numbers, could have happened. Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy as well. We live in a world of college football where we enter week number 5. Nebraska goes to West Lafayette. It's going to be homecoming. Remnants of Hurricane Helene. Please be nice to the state of Florida, Mrs. Hurricane, as it's going to probably make landfall in northwest Florida, where it is scheduled to make landfall.
Leave Destin alone.
Trust me, I've looked at a lot of spaghetti charts in the last 2 days. Someone who that has a lot of interest to.
Yeah.
It may hit a part of northwest Florida that is very uninhabited.
I saw that.
So fingers crossed, but it's going to be nasty. But there could be remnants of the hurricane in West Lafayette on Saturday for 11 a.m. But it's so great in college football. Well, we just talked about how college football has become NFL light. And these are conversations that we have that we don't like because we like our games more than all that other stuff, which is absolutely true. We also live in a world where you can win a football game, Nebraska, where Michigan and Iowa combined for 94 yards passing last weekend and win 2 games. Just saying, it's such a wonderful sport. Jimmy brought up during the update, Troy Dannon did his radio show last night. And he mentioned quite a few things. Yeah. So you had the new stadium. We need a new stadium, but there's no way you can do it because there's nowhere for them to go play. Yeah. But he used the phrase new stadium, and I went, huh? Whoa, Buffett has come through. He had the thing about Friday Night Football that we'll discuss in the 8 o'clock hour. There is the Wi-Fi discussion, so depending on where you are in that stadium this year, and the Wi-Fi is struggling right now.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi is in a perpetual 4th and 42.
Yeah. Oh, too soon.
But if you're in like the club level, the Wi-Fi is banging, and you can text, you can take selfies, you can watch video, you can do all of that stuff.
TikToks,
But
Reels.
if you are really kind of anywhere else in the stadium this season, for friends of mine that sit in all 4 quadrants, it's a struggle bus. I would love, this has never happened, I would love for the athletic director at the University of Nebraska to go to 4, well, let's see, go to 5 home games where you sit in the stands. You sit in the north, you sit in the south, you sit in the east, you sit in the west, and then go upstairs and sit in the 600. I would love that. And then they know the issues, and Dannon is really on point of, if someone, trust me, if you write a letter into the athletic department about your experience at Memorial Stadium and some things that are not working, Dannon is very big on, we got to respond to them right away. Yeah. We're not going to ignore them. We got to respond to them. They're our customers. They're the most important people in that stadium. I think they would have maybe a better understanding of the issues, like the small issues that fans have, or just maybe, hey, you know what? I think we can do that better. I think Husker Vision needs to be replaced. Something like that. I would love to see an athletic director, and maybe it's not 5 games, but sit in the stands for a game. Be crunched in, okay? Or try and go and get, a hot dog at halftime. Or, you're peeing in the trough, which
it's overflowing.
Shout out. I mean, we talk about the bad troughs at Memorial Stadium. You guys been to Kinnick Stadium over in Omaha Northwest?
Not recently, no.
Oh, hello.
I'm assuming they're new. Or are they worse?
I got what you're getting.
They were new in the 60s.
Oh, okay. So when Nile was back when he was playing. Okay.
So Dannon, you pull up for the trough and Dannon's right next to you. Man,
all right.
That's a real guy. He's understanding what our things are. I love to see the athletic director sit in the stands. Maybe he's got a lot of hobnobbing going on.
Yeah, I get it. You got to
one day you take the family and you go sit in the stands.
You got to press the flesh. I get it, but and I can give you the exact experience from the North Stadium 2 weeks ago. That was fine as far as the vantage point and everything, but as I was mentioning, when we were leaving midway 4th, and everybody else was. And it wasn't like, oh, there was a good time to, I mean, there was a steady stream once the third quarter. Once the light show took place.
I thought we were still talking about the troughs.
From the beginning of the fourth quarter on till when we left, there was always a steady stream of people leaving down the aisle. You're not getting out of there. I mean, it's like a traffic jam like you would experience when you're trying to get out of one of the parking garages. The phone issues, I thought was maybe overblown. No, it's bad.
I got
I wouldn't even
messages at one point.
Yeah, I was
at the Colorado game.
When I got out of the stadium,
felt like I had friends again.
And I disabled my Wi-Fi and just went off of the actual cell data is when things were popping up. But I tried doing that in the stadium too, and I couldn't even, like, even the cell data, I could not get to activate anything. So
I am used to that experience. So I was like, I know this music. I'm going to watch the game.
Now, I hope this discussion does not open up all you jabronis out there texting me and going, hey, what's the password to the media Wi-Fi?
So, okay, what's
We're
funny?
not doing that.
I remember getting
what's
those.
funny, though, is if you are on the west side of the stadium. Now, I remember
Fidelio.
this because this was the I think this was the South Alabama game. The first Nebraska win under Mike Riley, actually. I was still able, my phone was picking up the press Wi-Fi. And that's why I was like, I don't know what you people are talking about. But then I realized, I was on the press Wi-Fi. I'm not on the stadium Wi-Fi. And that's what I was 2 Saturdays ago. I was on the stadium Wi-Fi. I'm like, they're non-existent.
So the way I understand it is when they have the new stadium, they don't want to put in the infrastructure. So Verizon is going to be the partner.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to put in the infrastructure because where they would put some things, this is just me speculating, is that's not going to be there. So they want to wait until they're finished, and then you can, I don't know, it's a tower, but whatever you would do to increase the Wi-Fi in the stadium.
Well, and that's not going to be cheap.
It's not coming for a couple of years. Just listening to him last night. Chris tweets at me at Gary Sharp 1620. I have a seat in the north end zone behind a guy with bed bugs. That Dannon can sit by. And the university has no problem with it. So he has sent me a screenshot of a text message because it does on the scoreboard. If you have any issues, text a certain number.
Right.
Yeah.
So Chris must have texted that
showed up.
I'm sorry, that's not
guy
laughing.
in front of him has bed bugs.
Bed bugs.
Wow.
What's worse?
It's not head lice.
Bed bugs are lice.
After a summer of traveling, I told you guys we have a hygiene problem in this country.
Yeah. I agree.
He said, and so he sent me the screenshot of the response on Friday night. Thanks for the information, but we do not have a hygiene policy for the stadium.
Just being honest.
Which is actually true too. I noticed that. There was.
Yeah, I mean you're in tight quarters. If somebody hasn't gotten the old
bath,
the old roll on.
Now, I don't.
Weekly bath is Saturday night for church.
If your guys' experience,
I'm sorry, Chris. I've never encountered
that's awful
in a stadium in a tight quarter with somebody with BO.
I have. This is the second time now. So CWS a couple years ago, we were out in the bleacher seats, and my wife and I spent the entire game trying to figure out who it was. We had some suspects like, that.
But you sniff yourself because you start having second guesses.
You always do that. I mean, it starts with before I start casting stones, let me make sure I check my own backyard.
That happened after my first day here.
And this is where I felt really bad because we started kind of stereotyping people like, that person looks like he might have. And then that person would get up and go to the bathroom or whatever, or go get a beer. And you're like, oh, wait, I didn't detect any odor from that person. So it's not. So you're crossing all these people off the list. Still never found out who the hell it was.
110-pound skater boy.
But then
See you later,
2
boy.
Saturdays ago, wasn't nearly as bad as when I experienced at the CWS. But 2 Saturdays ago, there was a little scent of that. And this is where
guy sits behind this guy in front of him has bed bugs.
Yeah.
Holy
the fact that
you
you're
get a discount
it,
on seats, don't have to donate as much.
I mean, how often are you looking at the person in front of you too? So the fact that you could actually detect that, it's probably pretty bad. I don't know about you guys because of the BO thing. If I'm like I was 2 Saturdays ago, I was tailgating. It was warm out, so whatever you showered before you went down to Lincoln. You're sweating a little bit.
Dude, they have Speed Stick that
I do.
gives you 48 hours.
I bring that with me. So when I left the tailgate,
you walk around with the Speed Stick?
I have a little my travel deodorant.
Good on you.
Because I sweat a lot.
Okay.
And I know how that smell can be. So I did put that on before I left the tailgate. Even in my drunken stupor, I was still able to do that. You can control how you smell, folks. You can take those measures,
There is,
but it's a very unpleasant experience.
People say, "Man, your ratings must be great when Nebraska's losing," and I say, "No, actually, when they're winning, the ratings are better."
Mm-hmm.
But we get the most interesting shows when Nebraska loses. Jennifer says she agrees with me. When they added all those seats in the North Stadium and didn't add more entrances, that was a mess. I often stood in the line on the ramp for 45 minutes to get my seats before the game. Don't get me started on the bathrooms. We got to get to a break here, and I want to react to Troy Dannon standing up for the N and not the logo of the Big Ten about Friday night games.
Mm-hmm.
But let me put this out there, and if you've not heard this, I need somebody to figure this out for me. One of the things that was mentioned, because they did 4 home games, was the cashless. Dannon said this last night, that the cashless concessions have nearly tripled the revenue at Memorial Stadium. Last year, $375,000 was the average. This year, it is $900,000.
Yeah.
Does that mean that cashless is working? Or did somebody dip into the old cash while they were working concessions? Is there part of that is in there? Because that is a huge discrepancy.
Yeah.
Or was somebody's math off a little bit?
Well, math off a little bit.
375 to 900,000 is not just, hey, cashless, it's convenient. It has to be, I don't know, that Boy Scout was like, screw that. That chair costs $8. Actually, it costs $5, but I get $3. The university.
Further, Gary, isn't the point of sale when you go completely that way? There's a charge that comes out of the university to pay for that system too.
Just call me.
So you would think that would take some of the money away as well.
That's a significant jump for cashless.
Somebody might have had sticky fingers.
So for you people that carry cash and you're opposed, it's never coming back. Break time. Later, Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, week 3 of the 25K four-quarter pick'em is officially open. Make your picks now to get a piece of the prize, $25,000. Play now at 1620thezone.com. And again, congratulations to our week 2 winner, Chip Heineman, who won $2,500.
So there's a lot of things that people nowadays think are going to be the end of us. The Memorial Stadium going cashless is going to be the end of us. It's going to do us in.
Especially apparently during an election year.
Jim says I had a guy behind me in the concession line Friday night bitching that cashless was liberal.
Oh.
You know what? I prefer the team we cover to win more, but when they lose,
it goes
the week
everywhere.
of shows is just off the rails.
Everywhere.
Let's finish the hour. There is more to what Dan had said last night that has nothing to do with cashless or the Petrovs, which need to stay.
Yeah. You can upgrade them into nice stainless steel ones.
Yes. Where was I? Foundation Field.
Okay.
At Pavilion Vista
yep.
South.
Yep.
They have nice steel troughs. I mean, Kennick Stadium at Northwest, it's a little bit older.
It's not in the budget plans yet.
No. They fixed the turf, fixed the press box. We're good.
We'll get to the troughs.
You want to
pee?
We
get to the troughs.
They got a big parking lot.
Next to the spittoons.
Okay, let's we'll do a couple calls here. Let's go Patrick first on the 42. Dang. Patrick works in that world of the cashless, so I wanted to hear that.
And he was listening too.
All right, Dave in SWFLA, who you might have to go to my house and just check on it here in a day or two. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Busy. I got the morning off, and then I got to report to the fire station tonight at 6:00.
I think we're gonna get a heck of a swell. I think we might get lucky.
Well, that's the problem. We don't need the rain.
Well, I do know that.
So
we don't need the other stuff that's going to come with Helene.
No. And this is, I don't mean to desensitize this stuff, but this is about our 4th or 5th one in the last 3 or 4 years. So, it's sad to say, but it's kind of becoming common hat,
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, hey, on another note here, we're number 19 in the country now. We had a big win over Cocoa on Friday.
So people that don't know, Dave, who is originally from Kearney, him and I were neighbors down in Southwest Florida. And Dave is a football coach at Venice, which is a juggernaut of a high school football program, the largest class in Florida. And they are, if IMG, if you could knock them out of the way, you'd be number 1 overall in the state of Florida.
Well, we'll find out in 2 weeks. We're supposed to play Lehigh in 2 days. I don't know how that's going to go. And then we got.
Oh, I'll tell you how it's going to go on the field. Knowing Lehigh is god awful. Okay.
Yes.
The clock will be running at kickoff.
I hope so. We need it. We've had a juggernaut. We went from Gadsden County to Miami Northwest to who else did we have? We had Port Charlotte in there, who's rated.
Hey, give some respect to Bishop Verot. You only put up 70 plus on him.
Yeah, well, Mooney boat raced him this week. And hey, if anybody in Lincoln's listening, I got a kicker. I have a real good kicker.
Right. What's he asking for?
I don't think he'd ask for a whole lot. He just wants to play football.
Okay.
All right. You know the channels.
I'm trying, and believe it or not, I haven't heard nothing back. I don't know.
Hey,
I don't know.
Make it a package deal and send Sammy Watkins' brother up there as well.
Winston would be interested. He already has an NIL deal with Adidas, so he's already got a foot in the door.
Yeah. You're about to hear that Colorado has introduced themselves to the Watkins family.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah. That's coming next. Dave, be safe. Good luck out there, and I hope for the best as the hurricane makes landfall in Florida.
Thank you, buddy. I'll keep you posted.
Thanks, my friend.
Why is he going to go to Colorado? Who's he going to play for?
I don't know. They're recruiting guys.
Yeah.
That's
there'll be a package deal.
Yeah. So Sammy Watkins' brother is transferred to Venice. It's open, by the way, in the state of Florida. You can transfer wherever.
Jesus.
You could live in Fort Myers and play high school football in Jacksonville.
Duval, get a pumps up.
Man, you said Friday nights are pretty exciting out there. I'd love to see that.
It means more. Troy Dannon said, "No more Friday night football, please." Can he use something to convince the Big Ten that Nebraska is not a Friday night team. We'll get into that when we come back after the top of the hour. Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel still ahead. We're going to break down Purdue and a couple of things that can be fixed on defense and special teams and offense before Nebraska takes the field again on Saturday at West Lafayette on 1620 The Zone.
Halftime is brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024. That is happening this Saturday, downtown Hilton, and it is the largest celebration of whiskey in the region. We'll also have Big Red Overreaction with Gary and John Schreiner following the Purdue game, all live at Omaha Whiskey Fest.
All right, if you missed any of the segments, they'll be up on the radio replay page on this Wednesday. Lots of good comments going on in the stream. Good conversation. That is a whole community of 1620 The Zone.
Yeah.
A lot of people spend their day in the stream with us, so we greatly appreciate that.
Highlight of my day many days. I'm not kidding.
1620 The Zone TV. We got great listeners on this radio station. And if you were listening to Troy Dannon last night, first of all, good on him. Remember when Sean Eichhorst was the athletic director at Nebraska? I don't want to bring up
I sure do.
Open wounds.
Yeah, I do. I do remember that.
The thing that drove me nuts, and it pertained to the Black Friday game, is I thought Sean Eichhorst.
Sean Eichhorst.
We're going to be doing some Sean
Sean
Eichhorst.
Eichhorst. You're talking to Sean Eichhorst.
He now has a very, very Irish accent living in Austin,
Well,
Texas.
he is a ginger. He's Eichhorst.
I should just go into some British Open talk with that.
By the way, the people at Texas really like him.
Mhm.
They put him in a back office. He does kind of no. I mean,
No, I know.
yeah,
I just
so
every time I
Chris
hear about
Conte, revived his career.
Yeah.
And so Eichhorst is basically hidden in Texas, and he's involved in the football program. But when he was the athletic director here, it always bugged the crap out of me because it seemed like he was bowing to the shield and not protecting the brand.
Yep.
Like he was more, okay, whatever the Big Ten wants is good for Nebraska, instead of the other way around of what is good for Nebraska, we'll see what it is for the Big Ten.
Mhm.
And, when Moose got here, he was like, Nebraska, Nebraska, Nebraska. We might secede from the Union. And then Trev was like that, but I think Trev wanted to play. I think Trev wanted to play the balance of, hey, I got something here, but I want a seat at the big boy table in the Big Ten.
Mhm.
So Dannon comes along, and people are at least a little bit familiar with him with his time at Washington. But he said something last night, and everybody knows the TV ratings on Friday night. They were monstrous. Remember, it's Nebraska. Remember, it's a close game. It's a standalone game.
Yep.
People are going to watch. 4.2 million. It peaked at 5. I'd always like to see the ratings when the people that go, man, it's a close game, so I watched.
Mhm.
That's Chiefs and the Falcons. People weren't watching the Falcons on
What?
Sunday night, but it was a close game, so
I'm watching Kirk.
you're watching it. But Nebraska has a brand. It is a power. It is the Big Ten. The Big Ten has a major brand. The Big Ten and the SEC are dominating in terms of TV ratings. Thank you, Sankey. Thank you, Petiti, so that we get great classic matchups. And we, inch closer to Power 2. But Dannon said he wrote a letter to the Big Ten essentially requesting that Nebraska does not play at home on Friday nights.
Yep.
We will see how much power Troy Dannon has. Now, he went about it the right way because I think his reasoning was the disruption of the city of Lincoln and academics. And I think the Big Ten kind of wants to think about academics. So that's the right approach. Instead of saying, we're Nebraska, we're not going to do this. Because they'll say, have you looked at your recent strengths?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't been on the sidelines welcoming you to the Pinstripe Bowl. So step down. But we're about to find out if it's the power of TV saying, oh, no, 4.2 million, sold out stadium.
Mhm.
We're back in Lincoln, baby. Or Troy Dannon saying, hold on a minute. It's inconvenient for us. And then here's the other thing he can do. And TV networks, they make the world go round.
Mm-hmm.
People think that song told you that something else made the world go round. It's actually TV networks. I'm very uncomfortable as a radio guy. But here's what I would do with TV networks that want Nebraska as a brand and on Windows on Saturday. I would say, psst, Sean McManus. Psst. It's the only TV exec I know, so I threw that out there.
Okay.
We got a guy that wears 15. We have a guy, for the first time in maybe 15 years at the University of Nebraska, is an absolute star, not only in our state of 1.9 million and the GBR nation, but across the country We now have a football player at the University of Nebraska where everybody knows his name. He's played 4 college games, and people want to watch him, and they can't wait for the next Saturday to watch him. Wouldn't you like to have that on a Saturday game? Wouldn't you like to have that? Because we got a star.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not blowing it up. If you don't realize it now, I can't help you. Nebraska has a legit star, a star that they have not had for a long time. So I hope that it's received in the Big Ten and they go, you're right. But I fear that the Big Ten and Fox will take advantage of Nebraska because they're like, hell, if we have Nebraska play next to Big Lake, still 90,000 people are going to bring their lawn chairs and sit around and watch them play on Big Lake.
But isn't that the way to, if you're the Big Ten, to balance that, where I don't see Nebraska getting off of the Friday slate anytime soon, as far as other than the Black Friday game, but as far as his push for no home games on a Friday, because I think Nebraska is always going to be very appealing. If that game is played in Champaign, you're still getting big time viewership because of the brand, the power, the fact that it's a standalone Fox game, but also
year?
15.
What you bring that up? What did it do last year?
It wasn't that number, that's for sure. Was it on Big Fox though? I don't believe.
I'm not sure.
I don't think it was.
Which one?
There were a lot of times.
Nebraska, Illinois last year.
There were a lot of times during
FS1.
that 20-7 game that I wanted to turn it off.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the advantage of being on Big Fox. Fox has made the commitment to Friday night.
Yeah.
They said wrestling, you're out. We want wrestling in the Big 10 and the Big 12.
By the way, did you?
They have another Big 10 game this weekend, Washington Rutgers Friday night.
I don't know how far back you're recording because I know you
Big
had high
10
school.
screwing Nebraska.
You
They're
had high
giving
school
Rutgers
football.
an extra day.
Did you watch the pregame? No, it was the local pregame.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just gonna leave it there. We'll talk.
I do games for them, so I have to.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I was.
Okay.
There were a lot of screenshots.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Who were those people?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, but anyway,
sorry.
For a second there, I thought Ben Stevens was there, but I was like, that's not Ben
got to
Stevens.
chase the bag.
That's right. That's right.
Do it. I just never seen you before.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you. That was my only point I was making. I think that's the Big Ten's resistance of this, is that we can get a big number. We hear you about home games, and this isn't something that we want to necessarily maybe put you through, because we do want to be able to utilize the Nebraska brand. And I think you're right. That's the other part, because how do we track who tuned in to watch 15? But the fact that he's being talked about in NFL circles, the fact that he's being talked about on a somewhat regular basis when it's brought up to him by the most popular quarterback in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes. And then there are people like, oh, he doesn't just look like him, but he actually does have some chops. The guy can actually play some football too. That's kind of cool.
Can you imagine?
See him.
By the way, can you imagine with all the stuff that's, people saying Dylan Raiola is playing cosplay? Do you think the internet's going to break when it comes out that Dylan is dating a girl named Brittany?
And she's not a brunette.
Had a lot of plastic surgery.
I'm joking.
People are like, wait a minute, Gary. What are you breaking here?
I'm joking.
Best friends with his tight end, his girlfriend.
I'm joking.
Yeah. Him and Thomas Fedoni are really tight.
What he really needs to do to break this cycle of people going, friggin' Mahomes Jr., is like come out and say, Fedoni's an ass. I hate my tight end.
That would be great.
I hate my tight end.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome for the whole culture there? Come on.
But the approach by Dannon, though, you put the Big Ten on like, oh, so the Big Ten must hate, then they must have no respect for Nebraska's academics. So when the AD says, you've disrupted our academics, they're like, screw that. You guys people in Nebraska are dumb. Just play football.
You guys
right? You didn't come to Lincoln to play school. You came to play football. I like the approach because then you can go, whoa.
I appreciate it, but with all due respect to Troy Dannon, and especially with what we have now done in COVID,
you should go all moose on the league.
The remote learning thing is, I don't want to speak for professors out there, by the way, love y'all. But isn't it a lot easier to pull that off, that if you have to have the inconvenience of a Friday where either classes are canceled or you're doing more of a remote, get your work in? Aren't we well adjusted to that? I think you're right.
Nick, you're asking the wrong person.
He pushed the academic part of it, which, okay, that's fine.
I didn't make many classes that were before 11 because Young and the Restless was on.
But if I'm the Big Ten, I'm looking at that and saying, really? For one day that you can't do remote learning, one day that you can't do that, really, that's a huge inconvenience. I appreciate the attempt, but because the alternative was, we're Nebraska, we don't do this, like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State are saying. And then that's when they could be like, start doing those things like those guys are doing it, and we'll talk.
That's why it's what are the TV networks? They go, oh, we have a golden goose on Friday night where we go to Lincoln, Nebraska. You know what you have? You have the opportunity in the Big Ten. If I'm Rutgers, I'm clamoring to play on Friday night. I want to play on Friday nights because I can showcase my program in a standalone game that if you go Arizona K-State and now Nebraska, Illinois, Friday Night Football is here to stay. But if I get a standalone game where I don't get lost in the mix on Saturdays, I get my own night. I get a lot of attention. I want to play there. And so Washington and Rutgers are playing this Friday night. By the way, little nugget about Rutgers, who will be in Lincoln next weekend. Would you like to take a gander at the 5 college football programs for 4 straight years have started 3-0?
Rutgers is on there, aren't they?
Yeah. Did not know that until I ran across it yesterday. I was doing some prep for next week. But if I'm Rutgers, if I'm Minnesota, if I'm Purdue, if I'm Indiana,
yes,
I'll step up and play on Big Ten Friday night. I can showcase my program, and we don't get lost on Saturday.
Illinois has played seemingly since they started this every Friday.
Yeah.
Not just to open up the season. And then we know Michigan State, they do it every Friday to open up the season. Nebraska now, what is this? Not hosting, but just playing on Fridays, has also been amongst that group. That's the reality right now. But the Nebraska part of it is serving 2 different fronts when it comes to the TV decisions. It's you don't have a pot to piss in right now because of what your program has done here in the Big Ten, but also, boy, do we love that Nebraska bump on Friday. Yeah. The other programs, I think, look at it in a different way.
I think we're taking advantage of here in Nebraska. I think they just think that we will, if GBR rolls the ball out there, we will go and watch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and unfortunately, it's true.
We will. I mean, but resist all you want, you will.
Do not take advantage of us. Thank you, Adam, for the text. I did not see this. This is from NFL Memes.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Raiola has a brother that just committed to Nebraska. Looks like Jackson Mahomes. And I'm looking at Dayton.
Dayton's like a foot shorter. Dayton doesn't look like him. No, he doesn't.
By the way, talk about a muted commit.
He does not. Yeah.
Hardly anybody has talked about Dylan's brother. Now he's in the class of 26.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been the response has been like, all right.
That's righty bias.
I think
it's righty bias. People don't trust left-handed quarterbacks, man. Look at that left-handed quarterback that's
leading. You not met Steve Young?
Yeah, well, tell me young kids who respect left-handed quarterbacks. Look at that left-handed quarterback that's leading a very good Tennessee team. Now, if you look at him now, you wouldn't believe that he played quarterback, but yes. And Josh Heupel. One of the strongest squirt guns you've ever seen throwing the football.
Put some respect, national championship quarterback, Josh Heupel. And he walked out with Morgan Wallen at Neyland Stadium on Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. Oh, his stock is as high as it was in that national championship season. Not when he was with the Dolphins.
There is an update to what the hell is going on at UNLV this morning with their quarterback. UNLV has responded.
As well they should.
All right. Plus, more on Dylan Raiola. He is a legit star. He's a star. He is the first star that Nebraska has had that has been known from day one in a long, long time. But the star got a mention yesterday by the DC and the OC, which I thought was kind of interesting on what they are mentioning about Superman. We'll get into that when we come back. Jay Moore about 30 minutes away. Brandon Vogel as well on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy as well. Jimmy, your team. I don't know if there's any professional team or college team in America. There are candidates, of course, that your day is determined by if that team wins or not than your Dallas Cowboys.
My day is no longer determined. I have alternative viewing plans if things go south tomorrow night, although I expect them, because of the way it goes, is they'll win tomorrow night. And some people will be, see, they're back. No, they're not back.
They
8-8 forever.
I think the Cowboys are a better story when they're losing.
Because then Jerry starts talking more.
But if they
that's what we need more
they do happen to lose tomorrow night in New York against the Giants, and they've owned the Giants.
Yeah.
But if they lose that game,
I'm here for this. Yeah.
I think Mike McCarthy is on his way out.
Mike Zimmer might as well.
Yeah.
Mike
Oh,
Zimmer.
yeah, they cannot stop the run.
I think I'm Team Richie tomorrow. All hail Parcells.
And
if you want change, tomorrow's a big night for you then.
And they're cheap. The Cowboys are a better story when they're losing. I'm sorry. But
it's the truth.
But when the Cowboys, when they win or don't win, the mood of people that are non-Cowboy fans.
Oh, God, yeah. The giddiness?
I mean, that's why they are America's team.
Shout out John Bishop.
America has this thing called the business side of college ball, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
The situation that's been going on at UNLV with their starting quarterback, Matt Sluka, who Matt Sluka's probably not starting at Nebraska.
Second coming to Ron Powless.
No. Had a good career at Holy Cross.
So did Bob Cousy.
Yeah, and if the tampering is going on like it is said, that might be the only place that gives him forgiveness. So the stats are not great, but he's a quarterback of a team that's ranked in the 3-0. So here is the scenario. There's a lot of stuff being shared on the internet about rumors, and I don't even like the song or the album. But here's three things that I think potentially have happened. One, the NIL commitments were not being met. And I should add more to this if you're just tuning in. So he has decided that he is going to shut it down for this year, and he's going to redshirt. He is a senior, so he will retain a year of eligibility. So the NIL commitment was not being met. The team got off to a good start. He played okay, but he's the quarterback of an unbeaten team.
Yep.
And he went into the coach's office and put his feet up on the desk and said, dude, kind of like Tony Vitello. When he went to interview at Missouri, people say, Tony V, how come you didn't get the job at your alma mater? Vitello went into the AD's office in Columbia, put his feet on the table, and the AD was like, bro.
Yeah, what are you doing?
So maybe he went into Barry Odom's office, threw up the old...
Did he have dollar signs on the bottom of his shoes as he put them up there? Just to make a little bit more of a point taken. Yeah. Dollar sign.
He went in and
Didn't say anything.
Yeah, he said, hey, here's the deal. Maybe he walked in and he had the necklace from Brewster's Million.
Oh,
nice.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had to give a shout out there for a little...
bless you for even bringing
Richard
that movie
Pryor up. and John Candy.
That's so good. You could just say the Connor Happer show is next and we could walk out.
So maybe he did that. Maybe he said, hey, I want a little bit more bag. I've not been a great quarterback at Holy Cross. This is my time. I got to strike while the iron's hot. Or a bigger school came in, tampered, offered him a crazy future deal. That school might be crazy if I look at, he's not a guy that's going to win me a league. So it sucks all the way around, but it's the reality of college ball. I mean, a quarterback might leave your team, and a conference with a quarterback that's leaving their team, that team in that conference might leave the conference.
Yeah.
What a wonderful world we live in. So those are what I would think is like three scenarios in what this is. But welcome to NFL Light, where contracts, lawyers, representatives, false promises.
You were warned.
You were.
Well,
you were warned.
This is what is being now reported by Carl Reed Jr. of CBS Sports and College 24/7 Sports.
Have we specified which one?
So, now we know what UNLV's stance is here. Saying all financial commitments for UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka were completely met, but after wins against KU and Houston, Sluka's family hired an agent, and they collectively feel that his market value has increased per source.
He'll be in the Big 12 next year.
So
there will be lawyers.
Yeah. This is the part that we talked about. If this was happening, that if you are that player and now you're moving the goalpost back because, again, someone said, hey, you're worth this. And they're like, all right, come on, meet it. Like you said, putting the old feet up there and saying, what's up? earlier somebody had mentioned, well, doesn't the NCAA have to get involved in this? And that's just kind of laughable because the NCAA has, in my opinion, has created these types of scenarios, whether it's on the player or on the school, to happen.
This is going to be a wild day on the old X. So Paloma Valencia, she is an award-winning Fox Sports reporter and hosts some UNLV show. She said, per source, he has been approached with more money to transfer.
Oh, wrong one. This one's out of Bogota, Colombia.
What are they saying?
I couldn't understand.
What's their stance on this whole matter?
Just bless your collective that promises are kept and people aren't buying players off your roster. Nebraska's going to play a team this weekend in Purdue that people came in and bought players off their roster.
Mm-hmm.
There's
also
a guy.
wide receivers.
There's a guy that Nebraska has a robust deal with that's playing quarterback, and he is a star. You cannot run away from it. He's not on the level like Travis Hunter, where people are chasing him.
Yeah,
I think it's just a little bit different. Maybe Nebraska nice, but 15 is a star, and star in the making, star arrived. Whatever. He's a deal where the college football shows talk about him before they talk about the team that he plays for. There was talk about him yesterday. One of my takeaways from White and Satterfield, I've never, ever at the University of Nebraska heard a defensive coordinator reference the quarterback putting up 24 points and commenting about ass.
All right, please add some more context to that one, Gary. Come on.
Big fans of this.
Do what you want to do.
It's very misleading.
Didn't it seem like it was a subtle like message to the team through the two coordinators? Hey, you need to get on Dylan's level.
Second week now. Second week they've done that.
Superman needs some more Marvel characters with him.
Yep. No, I thought the second week is interesting that is still being said because
Rudiger could have made All-American.
But as it is, you're on the third team to the scout team. That you would have now, and now this was the first time Tony White said this, but you had Matt Rule say it. You had Marcus Satterfield after Matt Rule say it, double down on it.
Hey, you should be embarrassed. He often scored 24 points and you didn't win a football game.
And
not playing Michigan.
Right. And this was my initial reaction when I heard Matt Rule say it, is in years past, and this isn't just Nebraska, but in years past, there'd be certain football programs that if you laud the freshman that way, that creates a golden boy type of feel with around the kid, that you're not being treated the same. You're not, he's above everything, but we know that's not how they handle him, and Dylan Ryle has earned it.
Yeah, he's earned it. You're right. That's great. That's the key word.
Yeah, and I don't think you say that. I don't think any of the coaches say that unless they know the team also understands that he's earned that.
There's a dynamic you have to balance because he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't run away from it. I mean, and he hasn't started to cook yet. I mean, I want to see when everything is cooking together. They are balancing the dynamic of having somebody like that in that position where he might be the Amir was so good that Amir clouded over some issues because Amir could make a play. Dylan might be and get to that status where he's so good that he clouds over some issues that maybe you don't have to address until Dylan doesn't have, he tries to get out of the phone booth and the door's stuck. He's like, oh, no, help. But
get off the phone.
I think this is my read. It's the balance of, God, we have this kid, man. When he cooks, things light up and we go, wait,
do that again?
To let's let him cook. And then no. Let's run the ball so we take stuff off his shoulders. But wait a minute. If they're going to give us the pass, I want to see 15 dial it up. Mm-hmm. So it's the balance of do the right thing, do the smart thing. What do we do? Can we get everything together?
Yeah.
So that's where I say it sounds like the sense of urgency of we got something here. Now, if we can elevate,
right,
we are cooking with peanut oil, boys and girls, and you'll all get a Panini card in your mailbox.
This was the conversation that you and I have had about where they failed with Adrian. But you bring up something about Dylan that, to an extent, early, mind you, because I know people are going to roll their eyes when I say Adrian Martinez.
Yeah,
you know
I'm
where
going to
I'm
stop
going
you.
on this.
No, but I'm not going to join that.
Okay.
Because the kid has played 4 games. He made a couple of throws on Friday night that you could honestly say, and I don't care if you pee black and gold in the morning, you can't overlook this. There are some NFL throws. I never said that about Adrian.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah.
To your point, though, about when you have a guy that's either a dynamic talent or athlete at that position, that it can mask certain issues that you might be having, whether it's lack of playmakers around you or it's an offensive line, that you can mask that. You can get by in a season, whether it's because you didn't recruit certain positions well or you had a run of injuries. But it's the idea of making sure you're supporting him year in and year out. Dylan came into a better situation than what I believe Adrian did as far as how the coaching staff looks at that position on how it wants to support it. I just think that there was so much confidence in that idea that Adrian is just going to be able to have the answer when we need it. And the recruiting of positions of need around him, I think, led you to believe that. This is where I feel Dylan is in a better situation where they're not going to let that happen again. They made a commitment to him, and as he made the commitment to this team that, okay, by coming on board, we're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you off field. We're going to take care of you, more importantly, on the field, between your development and the guys around you, because we talked about being upright and guys you have to throw to, what teams are going to want to try to do, how you protect them, all of those things. But that idea of, boy, this guy gets us out of a lot of jams, that's pretty sweet. That's fine, but just don't expect that to be the case for 3 years if you're not supporting him around him. Unfortunately, Adrian didn't have that luxury, in my opinion. 2 completely different quarterbacks. I'm not trying to compare the two as far as what they did.
Their skill set is different.
Absolutely. But as far as the idea of what you could do to get a team out of a jam offensively, I still think there's a little bit of that when I think of Adrian, what they failed to do, and where I'm more confident that is not the case with Dylan.
I think Adrian under Matt Rule would have been completely different.
100% agree.
I mean, when the quarterback is more mature at his position than the guy that's in charge of him,
yep,
I mean, that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that there is, and then the other part about yesterday, you mentioned the coordinators talking. There's the body language. We were talking about that earlier, the body language of all the players and everything. I know maybe sometimes you're just so young, you only know one way to deliver your weekly interactions with the media. But for a guy that hasn't experienced a lot of failures collectively as a team, same dude yesterday that he was after the Colorado win. It always seems like he has, when he talks, there's a calm presence. There's a idea behind what he says of, I got this. And it's not cocky. It's not brash. It's not anything that you're like, whoa, come on, man. You're in a true freshman year. You've only played 4 games. But if that is how he is in preparation and how he approaches everything, again, we can look at the arm talent. We can look at the throws that he makes, which are all valid, but the way he just carries himself. To me, that's something that I took away from yesterday as well. Nothing about him changes. Nothing about him, the way that he talks, the way that he answers questions, the way that he is either high or low. He's not. He's right there. He's exactly what you'd want and what you typically see out of a 20, 21-year-old, not a 19-year-old as a true freshman.
All right. Jay Moore, he acts the same way every week, whether that's good or bad.
This might be at a different spot each week. Might be at the Birds, might be in the car, might be in the office.
Birds was my favorite. Very peaceful. Good on my blood pressure.
Oh, that was tough sometimes. Try to get to the can I get past the bird in the background there?
He got some splaining to do. We will talk to Jay coming up at 9 on how Illinois ran for 129 yards in the second half. And can Tony White, a Tony White defense at the University of Nebraska, shut down a top 20 offense? Because I'm here to tell you, boys and girls, 3 of the next 4 teams that Nebraska will play are top 20 offenses. Jay's going to stop by at 9. Brandon Vogel as well from Counter Read on 1620 The Zone.
ZZ Top bringing the Elevation Tour to the Metro October 1st at Liberty First Credit Union Arena. Listen all week to the Connor Happer Show to win your way in. Check out 1620thezone.com for details.
Hey, she showed up yesterday on Happer's show. Becky is in the stream. I heard about Becky. I was warned about Becky yesterday.
What happened?
Becky has joined the stream party.
Good morning, Becky.
Yep.
Welcome.
Hi, Becky.
I'm trying to see it. I'd like to read some inappropriate comments. She hasn't got there yet. All right.
Good conversation, though.
So someone's trolling.
Yep.
I don't know if, like, my troll name wouldn't be Becky. It'd be Shaniqua.
I feel like...
Probably use that a couple times.
Okay. So next time I see that pop up, I'll just know it's you.
I used to date someone, and we would make a reservation. And I would say, Shaniqua. I love the name Shaniqua.
What happens when they say, can you spell that?
I would in real life like to meet a Shaniqua. I don't know any. I don't have a phone book.
I feel like people can help you out with that. Not with a phone book, but with the Shaniqua.
You think that there's a lot of Shaniquas that are...
I bet there's more.
well-known?
I bet there's more than you think.
Probably.
Yeah.
Omaha, big Shaniqua town?
I don't know about Omaha. I'm not saying just here in the state of Nebraska, but I bet with your regional reach and even going all the way to Florida, I'm sure that there's people you know that, because I feel like that was an early 2000s thing. There was some Shaniquas.
It's a great name. Love that name.
My memories of the early 2000s are a little fuzzy, so I don't...
That's okay. That's fine. I mean, we all go through those stretches.
It is a great name. Spell it.
But just catching up, if you're just tuning in this morning, college football world has been turned upside down by a 48% passer at UNLV who has decided to ask probably for a little bit more money at leverage. You know, say, hey, you know what? We're 3-0, and I've thrown for 48%. Should have seen the balls that were dropped the other 52%. But, asked for a little bit more money, and UNLV balked, and he said, "No, red shirt." Said, "Yeah, they didn't fulfill some commitments." So it's all over the place. But that's the world in college athletics. Here's what I will say. I will give a little bit of advice. Remember, I started the show by telling you, quoting John Cook, it ain't easy being a cowboy and a coach. Ain't easy being a radio host either. For people that are advising these young men and women, who are you in it for? Man, there are some kids that get bad advice. Bad advice. They have people in their ears that are not equipped to send them with the tools they need to get into the world of NIL.
Yeah.
You might be a family friend. You might be a buddy from high school that sat next to Frank in algebra. Man, step down. Let the pros help kids, because I think sometimes kids get really, really bad advice, and the next thing you know, they're screwed. And it may turn out to be the situation. I want to speculate, but this is a good discussion of what is going on at UNLV. But he's a 48% passer.
Right.
I mean, Auburn might take him because Auburn has bad,
But as we're talking about when this whole thing started out, and we're thinking, boy, did UNLV just absolutely screw the pooch on any type of fulfillments? If you're a coach, and you know what your guy is doing, but you also know what your guy maybe is incapable of doing, and he presents you with an ultimatum. And again, there's going to be back and forth in this story. It's trying to figure out who's actually telling the truth here. That your quarterback all of a sudden, or even name any player, gives you an ultimatum, and you know that, hey, you've got people in that world, maybe it's not as advanced or as tightened up as other collectives, but you have people in that world are saying, so-and-so just came into my office and saying that they're getting offered this or they're worth this, that if we don't pay them that, this is what's going to happen. And then you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at their value of the team. What kind of spot does that put you in as a coach, though?
Well, that's why coaches have to play the NIL game, but they hate the NIL game. They know what it can do in some. If you have a good locker room, it doesn't disrupt your locker room. Not everybody is created equal,
and you know that.
But if you have a bad locker room, people know how much each other's bag is and what they're getting, and you're like, dude, this didn't happen, but I'm going to use him as an example. Jeff Sims is getting that for that performance,
right?
Come on, bro. So that's why college coaches, man, it can be really, really rough out there. All right, a couple of emails here to finish up the hour before we get to Jay Moore. Bob writes into the Equitable Bank inbox, where we're not sure as we get closer to Nebraska Purdue on the Peacock what old man Doug is going to do. Trying to figure out how many
devices.
How many devices you can have the Peacock on?
All the devices.
My time here at 1620. It is one of the all-time calls. But Bob writes in, is Marty Bird the one who set up the cashless app system at Memorial? Sounds like maybe the 1890 NIL fund is washing money now through concessions to pay for and use players. Still can't beat Illinois, but it is more of a long game they are working towards.
Wait till they put Los Pollos Hermanos in the stadium.
So, it's been a while since we've been able to talk about Ozarks, so thank you for that.
So
the Marty Bird system.
Last year during 4 games... The first 4 games, the average concessions were $375,000. Through 4 games this year with cashless, it's $900,000.
Very lucrative.
Yes.
Got a payroll to meet Mr. Bird.
When does the cartel make their way in?
According to this commercial.
Zach says the Lego Maniac, people will pay more attention to Dayton Raiola once he gets a recruiting ranking bump after this season.
That's Dayton, not dating.
Agree. It's just been, you would think his brother is doing brother things.
Yeah.
That the next thing, and cool for the family.
Right.
I mean, the whole family is University of Nebraska. They got a daughter that works in the recruiting office as a GA.
Tom's got to be like, damn right.
Their son is quarterbacking the hell out of 4 football games with hopefully, let's see, I did the math, 8, 35 more games to go in his career.
Quarterbacking the hell out of it. I like that.
This is on the. This is from Bill about the cashless system. He wonders, not going the Marty Bird route. He goes, "Do you think the increase in revenue could have anything to do with having 3 games at night around dinner time? Maybe off, but I'm more likely to get concessions if it coincides with a meal rather than a snack."
You know what? That's fair. Absolutely.
Meal.
Didn't even
Especially
think of
if you
that.
have bed bugs, you might need a little more.
That's giving you a bump. 100%. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Now, this is from a texter.
Fans are hungry.
And Nick, you brought it up at the beginning of the show. Kind of the reaction this week after you lose to Illinois. Nebraska's 3-1. It's game 5, Saturday. We got 12 more to go. Mm-hmm. You know what? What would it have been like if Nebraska would have lost that close game to Indiana in 16? So they had a loss before they got exposed. Yep. You'd have been like, we'll ask our next guest about the reality of where Nebraska football is. But I think it also shows the expectations for this team. Not only, damn, that was familiar again. The past is dictating the present, but the expectations of, man, we think it's a good football team. Mm-hmm. And then you lose a game like that where you're favored by 7, and some jabroni on 1620 in the morning said 24-14, don't know how Illinois is going to score 14. I took the L on that. Sorry, I paid my penance.
Yeah.
Kind of.
We all did.
I drank a regular Coke instead of a Diet Coke for y'all.
Damn. It's dangerous.
But this text from Vince is kind of the vibe I've gotten on the phones and the emails and the tweets on this radio station post Friday night. Vince says, seeing the sky is falling mentality from our fan base. Some of them, anyhow. Thank you. Not everybody. I think we have some realistic people out there.
Yeah.
I hope so. If not, man, you're gonna have a short life, and you're gonna wonder about heart problems like Jimmy.
I got the numbers to prove it.
Sorry, was that too soon? Was I violated a HIPAA law there?
No. I'm sure I'll be dead soon.
We all are.
Exactly.
It's about the people we met along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I see it
and
like
memories.
this.
My
Vince
friends.
continues on his text. My perception of this team is no different today than it was before Friday. Remember, Sip was on the show last week, and he said, you know what, even if they lose, man, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And then I heard him yesterday. I'm like, you are a Nebraska treasure that must be protected at all costs. But what are you doing? I didn't think we were a great team, and I don't think we're a great team now. We are simply a good team that looks great, that at times looks great.
Yeah.
Now, if we lose to Purdue on the road by a perception of this team will change, but I don't think it's going to happen. For the sake of somebody who is on half of the Big Red Overreaction co-hosting list, I hope to God Nebraska does not lose on Saturday, because I might be done with that show forever. I've tried so hard to get off of Big Red Overreaction for 10 years.
Okay, do we need to do this at half? If the game is getting a little wonky at halftime, we just need to switch out hosts? You're like, all right, we need to call in a reliever for Big Red Overreaction.
I'm anticipating a game where it won't be necessarily easy for Nebraska.
Yeah.
Because Purdue has run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Maccabee and Love have been in the Big Ten. Yep. Nebraska's seen them. They do run the ball pretty successful. They don't stop the run. It's a first road game, freshman quarterback. Weather could be. I don't expect Nebraska to run away on Saturday from this game. So, I don't know. I mean, what is the perception of Nebraska football through 4 games? That's the bottom line question. The perception of Nebraska football 3-1 through 4 games with 8 to go and your most difficult games ahead of you.
Is better, but not even close to a ceiling, which is fine.
Okay.
Because here's the other part about this that I saw going back and forth, and I believe I'll give him credit. I believe Fremont Fred started this little crusade of
Shout out Fred.
How
No, it wasn't a good thread yesterday because I was involved in it.
you're like, what are all these?
I wanted Fred to start tweeting back out memes of him and
taking people out on a golf cart with like different faces and stuff like that. Yeah. Or the fully husked, the typical Fred go-tos. That people's perception based on what they predicted going into the game and then how they were feeling after the game. This is where you also have to consider the people that usually are more vocal after games don't essentially represent the majority of the fan base. And so if you were to say 3-1 after the 4-game stretch, you would say, well, that's better than it was last year. You're closer to 6 wins than you were at this point a year ago. And if you're using your eyes, you're seeing legitimate improvement in certain areas. Now, it was easy after the Colorado game to get ahead of ourselves on the defense and other elements of this team, even certain areas where and again, even special teams, kicking is bad, man. It is awful. But there's return elements. There's certain things that have improved. So if you're using that and you're using where this team was a year ago, you can live with 3-1. Now, again, I would agree with the person. Was it a text or email?
it was
about the Purdue
bloody knuckle Vince.
Okay, bloody knuckle. I would agree with Vince on this one. You lose to Purdue, now we're having a different conversation.
Well, if you lose, I'll play along here. If you lose to Purdue, it raises a lot of red flags about 5 games into year 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now there's a lot of evidence out there that coaches in year 2 that are cooking with peanut oil right now in the game, by the time they got to the middle of year 2 or through year 2, they were still like a game above 500. But remember, we've preached, and I'm not backing away from it. They're further ahead. Yeah, you would have a lot of red flags, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Josh. See you, Josh.
Oh,
I need to email him back.
I know. This is the first interaction that we've had. And remember, we're coworkers.
Yeah.
Since Nebraska beat Colorado, he says, imagine what concession revenue would be if South Stadium didn't run out of food all the time.
That's it? That's all?
Just keep it moving.
Well, Colorado won last week. So
Colorado fans came back this week when they beat Baylor and Nebraska lost. Glad to have him back on the show. Thank you very much. Yes, that is a issue apparently in the South. Is running out of food.
And Trops.
All right, Josh. I think maybe we're back.
Good.
All right.
Before September's over, we're all back.
Jay Moore will join us next. Some of these questions we'll ask him. We'll see if he has answers. Again, Nebraska and Mizzou. That'd be awesome. Wow. Nebraska and Purdue.
Same colors, kind of.
Big 8 forever.
11 a.m. Big Red Overreaction will be at Whiskey Fest at the Hilton Omaha right after John Schreiner and myself. And if you want to come and hang out with us, and you know what, depending on the outcome of the game, host part of the show, we're going to give you the opportunity to win tickets here in the next hour to Whiskey Fest, which is this Saturday at Hilton Omaha. Big Red Overreaction will be live. Whiskey Fest is from 1 to 5. So halftime, if things aren't going well, drown your sorrows.
Yeah. You'll have
Whiskey
options.
Fest. Yeah.
Good options.
Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, our next guest, who joins us every Wednesday at this time. You may be. I thought you were driving.
I was.
Gosh, I wanted you to be driving because what if somebody pulled up next to you and gave you a little honk honk while you're on the air? Where are you pulled over at? As Jay Moore joins the show.
Just outside my office.
Oh, okay.
Just
all right.
Sometimes, last couple of weeks I've been in there, but the workout this morning went a little longer, so I'm a little late getting in the office. So
that's a problem I have. So
Is it legs day? What were we doing today?
Oh, it's full body every day.
Okay.
Full body every day. There's definitely no dumbbells or cleans or squats anymore. It's more kettlebells and bands and stability and flexibility. It's managing all the injuries in the past to make sure they don't happen again.
Okay.
Let's make sure that if you're a defensive guy and you being a black shirt, that Friday night does not happen again. Our conversation last week, you were kind of interested on, was it just Northern Iowa? Because you saw some things out of guys that it shouldn't be happening that happened. And then they played Friday night, and some of those things then happened against a better team. What do you think would be a lesson that was learned by that defense Friday night that can't be repeated or won't be repeated?
Well, I think you can get away with a performance like they had against Northern Iowa because it's Northern Iowa, right? You have to be, when you get the Big Ten play, I don't care who it is. Teams are too good, coaches are too good, that you can't have a slip up. You have to be on point. You have to prepare the right way. Your energy has to be there week in and week out. Otherwise, you're going to get beat and you're going to have bad performances. And there's just got to come a time that you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? I feel like this defense and this team should be there. And it's this time of the season too where you spend so much energy and that you go through camp, and then the whole build up to the Colorado game gets here and you perform very well. And part of it is recreating that energy, and you've kind of seen a step back, obviously since the Colorado game, but you got to be a professional about it, be a pro about it, and approach each week the same way. That's why I've always preached. It doesn't matter if you're playing Northern Iowa, Colorado, Illinois, whatever it is, right? Name some directional school that you should beat. You got to approach every game the same way and have the same energy each week, because if you don't, you're gonna have weeks where the defense had the last couple of weeks where you haven't prepared the right way. The execution wasn't there. And I don't think it's a physical thing. I think they're not executing. That's just, they're not doing the right things week in and week out, Monday through Friday in practice. So hopefully they have learned their lesson. I think it's kind of ironic that, again, this is the Michigan last year, and Michigan was the best team in the country by far last year, but that was the fourth game of the season last year. By far the worst performance by the defense in that fourth game, and they kind of button things up. I hope we see the same kind of bounce back. This is a great time to go on the road and kind of get right. But you got to look yourself in the mirror and just say, hey, we're slipping a little bit, and we got to get everyone back on the boat and rowing the same way, because if we don't, our goals that we have in front of us it's going to be hard to achieve.
I know you've been asked this question on top of what you just said right there. Realistically, from what you've seen, well, go back to the Northern Iowa game too, where there were some of these things happening. What is the most fixable compared to where concerns could linger just based on personnel, if you will?
Yeah, I don't think it's a personnel issue by any means. I think obviously having Tommy Hill out, but Sierra Wright played his tail off, I thought, on Friday night, filled in nicely. I don't think it's a personnel issue by any means. From a physicality standpoint, now if guys aren't going to do their job and do the necessary things within the defense, and you might have to find someone else. But to me, it's just from the run game fits, right? You got those can be cleaned up rather quickly. It just seems like I've used this phrase, I think, a lot this week, and I've always loved John Wooden's phrase is be quick but not in a hurry. Just seems this defense is in a hurry to get the places, and that forces other teammates to be put in bad spots. That puts your safety in bad spots. It puts your linebackers in bad spots. I want to see them be violent, be fast, be quick, but not be like, oh my gosh, I gotta get to this spot. Almost you run yourself out of the play. You put yourself in a bad position to not tackle well, to not fight pressure, to not counter what the offense is trying to do to you. So I think it's just, okay, guys, we got to just take a deep breath, slow down. I think everyone in this defense, I think the effort's there. It's just like, okay, we just got to define and refine what we're trying to do, because there's at times there's just guys are there's too many guys in the same spot. I mean, the overtime play was case in point. The first play, you have Ty Robinson crashing down, Mekhi Bayer comes crashing down next to him. All of a sudden, the edge is shortened, and you got Isaac Gifford and Singleton in a bad spot, right? Where they're like, I don't know, it's too much space to fill. So you just got to kind of define your things. You got to, if you're going to force things inside, you better have an edge defender to set the edge and force things back inside. If you're going to force things to bounce, you better have someone to bounce it too. If you're going to, we call it a spill technique or wrong shouldering, and that's where if there's a puller or a fullback coming to kick you out, you go inside them to force the runner bounce out. Well, there better be someone to spill it to. So you just got to define those things to clean things up in the run game. I think the pass game's fine. The pass rush is there. Quarterbacks are going to get rid of it quickly, but you got to get things cleaned up in the run game. First and foremost, you got to stop the run. Purdue's going to try to run it. That's the only thing they have been able to do this year offensively. So get those things cleaned up, and then this defense will be fine.
Jay Moore joining us, black shirt, Big Red Wrap-Up every Tuesday night. Him and Michael are the staples on that show, joined by numerous guests, including a running back last night named Damon Benning. Let's talk about running backs, because the run game has been discussed a bit this week, of Nebraska wanting to be able to run the ball when they want to run the ball. And one team ran the ball successfully in the second half, the other did not. But let's look at running backs in particular, Jay. In your opinion, which running back that currently sees action for Nebraska in that room has the best upside?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think right now I'd have to lean Ramir. Reason being is I think, listen, Dowdell brings that physicality, but Dowdell struggles with vision. I don't think he's able to catch the ball out of the backfield as well. I think Ramir gives you both options. I think Ramir can run physical. He can play with vision, and he's really good catching the ball in the backfield. So I think that gives your best, combo. And also the big thing is you got to be able to protect pass pro. I mean, the last play of the overtime, you saw Emmett Johnson. The guy just came right up the middle. I know they were chipping outside most of the game, but you gotta step up and find that guy, right? And it was a 3-on-3 situation. No reason to chip. Let's step up and protect the pocket. Let Dylan step up, and that's one play, and it's magnified because it's the end of the game. But I think Ramir gives you that best option. You want the physicality, and I think Ramir can do that. But you also got to be able to know how to take contact, know how to get skinny in holes, know how to create room for yourself to operate. I love Dowdell's physicality. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that he wants to run someone over, but sometimes it's like, man, you could bounce this thing or cut it one way, or stiff arm and do some things differently. Listen, I think all three guys that you've seen, we haven't seen obviously Gabe Irvin as of late, but all three guys bring an element. Emmett's really good out of the backfield. Dowdell's physical, but I think Ramir just is a nice package that gives you the best of everything, right? All three aspects, and that's pass blocking, running, and catching the ball in the backfield. So with that said, what would be an ideal role in the current setup for Emmett Johnson? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I think for him, it's secondary, right? It's coming in and giving a spill on some guys, but I also feel like when you have three decent backs, and it's so hard because you want. Listen, I played. I'm talking like I played running back in high school, right? But it's a feel thing. There's a feel thing that's involved too with all these backs, and to have a good feel for how the game's going, how the line's moving, timing with things. And I think sometimes you want to find guys and kind of roll with the hot hand. And I think Dowdell's has been the hot hand as of late. But I think Emmett can come in there, give Ramir, give Dowdell a rest. But he can, like I said, he's able to catch the ball in the backfield. But I think he's just a little bit of a liability in blitz pickup situations. And I think you're going to see teams blitz more often to try to get Dylan a little more uncomfortable in the passing game. So he has to be able to step up and do that. And if you can't, it's hard to play a guy if you can't do that. So I think it's just a secondary role for him. But it's just a game by game, case by case. Who has a hot hand at the moment and who has a feel for the game at the moment, which I think all three guys can get hot and get things going, and especially against a Purdue defense who hasn't been able to stop the run all year.
Jay, with what you heard yesterday, Gary and I were just talking about this a little bit ago about Dylan's name being brought up from the coordinators, the head coach, about matching his overall play. Yesterday, Tony White talks about him, of the freshman quarterback, balling his ass off, putting up 24 points as especially with a lot of veterans in that room too. As a member of the defense, when you hear that, what's your reaction?
Well, we got to play better. We finally, how many years have, we've had good defenses and haven't gotten, decent quarterback play. We've had spurts. Taylor's had his moments. Tommy's had his moments. Adrian's had his moments, but we really just haven't had a consistent quarterback play who's obviously a freshman and the weapons on offense in a long time. And hey, if we can hold teams in to 17 points, 21, whatever it is, right, we're gonna have damn good chance to win every football game because we have a guy back there taking the snap every play that can do some pretty good things with the football. I mean, he has weapons that he can get to that we haven't had in a few years as well. So it's on them right now. Listen, I know, Damon highlighted last night in the show that they went to, defense held Illinois to 3 points for 2.5 quarters, but still their ability to run the ball on first down has got to improve as a defense. They averaged 5.5 yards on run the ball on first down. Illinois did. You got to clean that stuff up. And again, it's not, I know it's not about the yards, it's about points. We've heard that for many years by Bo, right? But you got to put yourself in a good situation. You're giving up 5 yards a chunk on first down. Every offensive coordinator, I could call games from 2nd and 5 and be a really good offensive coordinator because you can do whatever you want. So they got to get that cleaned up. But you have an offense that's giving you help, getting you points, doing things we haven't had. You got to go out there and play well. And I think you'll see this team bounce back, the defense bounce back well. I think the leadership, the age, the seniority of this defense will get guys right. But again, you got to take it personal right now because you got the help. If you want to, special teams is special teams, right? But you got the help on offense that we haven't had, and it's on you to get it cleaned up and get off the field, make the plays that need to get made, and get the ball back to your offense as quickly as possible.
So let's stick with offense as Jay Moore joins us, and it's a little bit wonky because of three of the opponents Nebraska played and Rule's philosophy on what he does in the second half in terms of offense. And I don't want to say sitting on the ball, but if they get to 28, hey, we're pretty happy. But they come out and offensively, for the first half, they look very prepared. Like everything is on point. Anything the other sideline is given at them, they're able to overcome. But then in the second half, the points are lacking. The success is lacking. Staying on the field is lacking. And granted, it's probably just 1.5 games where you played into the fourth quarter with your main guys. But what can Nebraska do moving forward where they're going to be in 4-quarter games where the offense, which looks so good in the first half, has that same efficiency or at least near it in the second half?
Yeah, it's I've been a part of teams where we've played well in the first half, then we come out in the third half flat, or third half, the second half, third quarter, you come out flat. I mean, football is such a momentum game, especially in the college game where you have a 20-minute half instead of a 12-minute NFL, which I'd love for college football to change that, by the way. I'd love a 12-minute halftime in college football. But the momentum is you have it, and it's you go in there, you sit, you grab a Gatorade, a Rice Krispie treat or orange, whatever, an orange slice, and you kind of just go, you take a deep breath. You kind of lose your edge a little bit. But you got to come out. I think the biggest thing it would help Nebraska is just being able to run the ball more successfully in the second half. I think owning the time of possession is a thing that we haven't done a great job of in the second half. Like to see that improved. And obviously that's on the offensive line, and obviously we have injuries, and hopefully Mizuka's back sooner than later to get him that thing kind of shored up. But it's tough, man. A lot of teams struggle coming out in the second half. It's a weird thing. My senior year, we struggled mightily with coming out slow in the third half at Nebraska. Third half. I keep saying third half. In the second half, third quarter. So, like I said, you got to somehow recreate. You got to recreate your energy. But I think running the football, coming out in the second half, is what Nebraska needs to do. And if it's not working, hey, you have some play action stuff dialed up. But get those 3 backs that we've talked about. Get them rocking and rolling. Get your offensive line some confidence. And and tell them, hey, we're relying on you guys. It's up to you now. We're going to own the time possession. We're going to run this football in the second half, and to get what we need to go to gain that momentum and own the time possession, and then get the points that we need to win this football game.
Great stuff. I appreciate the conversation. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more positive conversation next Wednesday. But great insight. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll chat next week.
And so Jay Moore, you can find his fine work on Big Red Wrap Up with Michael and the rest of the gang at Nebraska Public Media on Tuesday nights. Really good show last night. Sometimes those shows do their best work coming off a loss. Thank you very much, Jimmy. A couple of things here from what Jay said. Jay hates the band at Nebraska. Clearly. Would like to cut 3 minutes out of halftime.
He and another guy that I'm friends with, who worked with me for a long time, TJ, also wants to do away with the bands. He is anti-college band.
Whoa.
He wants music. He wants just more music, more crowd music.
So what happens at halftime in TJ's world? Does the field is just clear and they just play music?
It's promotion after promotion. Let's kick some field goals. Let's maybe do a regular Dr. Pepper challenge.
Player.
Let's maybe have some type of like goat races or something. I don't know.
For everybody on the stream that we're reaching out,
what the hell was going on, Jimmy?
Not ignoring it's an app issue because I pulled it up, which is why you heard that. You could hear Jay on there. However, for everybody listening, I did check our settings are the same. The computer's the same. So my point is this will all be up on the radio replay and our top play, and it's all there. Jay's audio and everything. So if you missed it there, we'll have you taken care of there. But I could hear him, so.
I mean, I could too, but that was.
Oh, I could hear.
Yeah.
Also, one other takeaway from what Jay said is I think the orange slice has been replaced by the cherry slice.
What?
That's a thing?
The candy, not the it'd be tough to get out the cherry slice.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Who's got time for that?
So when he said orange slices, I'm not thinking about when we were all playing soccer at 5 years old, and which is just organized chaos, and it's very entertaining to watch, like a bunch of 5-year-olds chasing the soccer ball, which I did. I lasted playing soccer for like 2 years, and I was like,
yeah, you and me both. All right, cool.
Not for me. But at halftime, you did get the Gatorade and you got the orange slice.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever now I think anybody says orange slice, I immediately think of the candy, which is addictive, that every time I walk down the aisle in a grocery store, they start talking to me. The dots and the slices talk to me.
Freaking dots again.
But the cherry slices are better than the orange slices.
I can honestly say I've never had a cherry slice. Now, is there a little sour? Is a little sour element to it?
Oh, no.
Because I like myself a little bit of sour to it.
No. Have you had an orange slice?
I love
yes,
sour.
I've had it. I've had many.
There's no sour in that.
No, I'm talking. Does the cherry have a little bit of sour?
No,
just because I don't like the cherry flavor of anything. Period. So if I'm going to step up to a cherry type of candy, I need a little bit of sour element to it.
No,
there's just certain things that taste better when they're sour.
Cherry slice and then little fireball, get you going in the morning.
Oh, so that's what you do when you get out of the shower.
Who says I do it when I get out of the shower?
I thought you say, who says I shower? Thought we already had that conversation.
I showered recently.
Good. On Sunday?
We all have.
No.
You did your weekly shower?
No. I've had to be out in public.
Oh, that's true. That's good. Yeah. But it's a 2 or 3 day
when
layoff.
I'm not leaving the house on Sunday, I'm just going to watch football.
Yeah, you're like, meh.
Who am I showering for?
That's when you say, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Hmm.
I agree. And also, now I don't know, this would have to be, well, I should ask Jay this. I know the new craze and tailgating and everything is pickle juice of everything, but what about the pickle juice and its place in a locker room, even going back to like early 2000s, 90s?
Just even if you don't have cramps?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to have it on hand.
The Eagles made that famous in 2000.
That's what I mean. You got to have it on hand. It's not like you're like, hey. Because so when we played in a cold high school football game, one tub was cold water and the other was chicken broth.
Yeah, now chicken broth is effective.
Any bread?
I think that has that stood the test of time. I feel like now in 2024 they still have the tub of chicken broth.
Reading some emails, Jimmy. Can't hear Jay on the app. David says we can't whoever you are interviewing on the stream. Tony says we can't hear anything that Jay is talking about on the stream.
I'm getting the sense that they didn't hear him on the stream.
I had him in one ear, by the way.
Our own company even sent us an email. Can you keep a secret? We can't hear it on the stream. And the address and the address is 1620 The Zone.
Whoa. Wow. Jeez. I don't know. Did you have it in both ears? Because I only had it in my right ear.
Yeah, in both ears.
It's weird.
And then heard it on
I'm hearing all of us fine, but in my left ear, I
listened on my phone on the stream.
What did you say? Where did you go? Were you in the bathroom?
Huh?
Were you like having some personal time?
No, I was heating up my coffee, but I did stop in the
For
bathroom.
15 minutes?
And I did stop in the bathroom.
Did you have to blow on it? You got a microwave?
No. But I did listen in there. He sounded just fine.
I think it was a mono thing because I seriously only heard him in one ear.
And everyone on the stream said it was fine on the YouTube.
Okay. Thank you for getting to the bottom of that. It'll be up on the replay page. Good stuff from Jay. A little surprised he said off the question, the running back with the highest upside is Ramir.
Mm-hmm.
Ramir. Bob Sluka has spoken. If you didn't know who the Slukas were, the college football world does.
That's Mr. Sluka.
The whole stuff around his son, Matthew. Bob Sluka is the father.
Mm-hmm.
He told ESPN that his son's agents agreed to an NIL deal with the school back in February, never received payments despite requests, and never asked for any adjustments to the original deal. Quote, we have no idea what the hell happened. John has chimed in. John will no longer be interacting with the show. He said, Cherry, anything is worse than everything else.
I'm with John. Cherry's bad. Cherry's not good.
What do you guys got against Duran?
He was good.
You know what? I remember getting some of those football cards.
What
One
do
of
you
the first
guys
ones I got
have
was
against
Duran
the
Cherry,
Runaways?
number 20. Do you remember the really awful candy? It was
Well, you can't stay at home and you can't stay in school, Nick.
Those hard cherry candies. What the hell are they called? And they were sour. Gosh.
Lemonheads?
No, they were like that, but they were around the time of Lemonheads.
Warheads?
They were in a black box. They were something like, I think
maybe
they were called sour cherries. All I know is
those are a different candy.
The only good thing
made to make you go to sleep earlier.
A cherry cough medicine? Well, yeah. It would help a flight every now and then too. No, the only thing that cherry's ever been good is a cherry Pepsi or cherry Coke. Cherry cola. It's the only good thing cherry's ever created. And that's the facts, man.
Cherry Pepsi, 6th grade PE.
Thank you. People now are quoting Warrant lyrics to me off Cherry Pie.
Nice.
Cherry
Thank
Pie.
you,
JKK2. Cherry Pie sucks.
Finish this on
Worst
Mr.
pie.
Sluka. His dad goes on to say they kept deferring. We don't know. You have to wait. Then it was like, we're going to give him game checks.
Wow, this is SMU in the 80s. All right.
So we're like, okay, great. We did not ask for a single dollar more. Sluka added that Matt's living expenses weren't even covered.
Whoa. Okay, if that's true, again, that's a problem. This kind of goes back to the original part of this conversation of collectives not having their, what in a group.
Also going back to something I said earlier, because I'm not in this world, but I wish that Disney and Warner Brothers would come together. Sean says Superman is a DC character. I quoted him as
Marvel.
Dylan is from the Marvel family, and he wears the Superman cape. I wish Disney and
Jesus.
Warner Brothers would get together. Then we wouldn't have to worry about DC and Marvel being apart.
It is confusing. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm no. That's a common mistake.
All I know
don't beat
is
yourself up and don't take that type of criticism.
All I know is that when I was a kid, all my action figures, it didn't matter if they were DC or Marvel. They all played together.
See, that's right, and good for you too. You didn't have no corporate rivalries or anything like that.
Yeah.
They could all come together as one and just save the world collectively.
Brandon Vogel is still to come on the program. Jimmy, will they be able to hear him in the stream?
Should. How much I can tell you, everything was pressed right.
I didn't know where you went.
Well, we had a few phone calls too, and I don't know if that was because of they couldn't hear him either.
But it will be, as Jimmy alluded to, he has put it up on the
Everything's
stream.
on there, so
you'll
it'll
be
be
able to enjoy that.
Chocolate and orange together makes me puke. Okay.
Are you saying that on your own, or
no, that's
on
from
the stream.
That's from Tiger Shark.
Oh, it's dirty, rotten, filthy, stinking.
I'm just relaying what the people think. Huh? Bringing the conversation from
cool
the people.
Drink of water, such a sweet surprise. Tastes so good, make a grown man cry. Sweet cherry pie.
Such an overrated pie.
The song's not.
No, the song's a banger.
Song's good. The pie sucks.
The song is a banger.
Think about baseball. I'll swing at night. It's mornings on Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
All right, we are going to make somebody Saturday afternoon incredible. If you want to go to the Omaha Whiskey Fest, you need to know the number 402-951-1620 and back by popular demand as we get ready for the event on Saturday. Also, where Big Red Overreaction will be. We get ready for the event on Saturday. We are going to give you stats that would make you drink. You need to name me this team. And if you know the team that I'm about to throw out some stats, 402-951-1620. All right, here we go. This is a preseason top 25 team. They now average 15 points a game. They average 276 yards of total offense a game. They have scored 6 touchdowns in 4 games. Their third down conversion rate is 31%. Their quarterback has completed just 56% of his passes while throwing 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And their running game is averaging 65 yards a game.
I know who it's
There
not.
are more stats I could give you, but we don't have time. Give me that team. Remember, this is a preseason top 25 team. If you know the team that I just rattled off, those horrific stats that would make you want to drink a lot of whiskey, 402-951-1620. Brandon Vogel will give us some stats that will make you say, oh, that's much better. Coming up next.
All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy here as well. And our good friend from counterread.com, Brandon Vogel, joins us on this Wednesday. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
You know, I have great respect for you. You are a truth teller, and sometimes when you tell the truth, it hurts. You wrote the other day about the black shirts issues, and it wasn't just the Illinois game, which you went in depth on numbers and yards, adjusted yards, but yards gained of the possible yards. But then you did one thing I love when you do this. You made graphs. And you made a graph comparing last year's Tony White defense to this year's Tony White defense through 4 games, and it's not good. Not terrible, not good, not great. Through 4 games, what, in your opinion, is the difference in a defense that outside of Michigan last year was pretty solid? Colorado, but after Michigan, pretty solid, gave you enough. This year, they're a talking point, Brandon. 4 games into the season, and it's not a talking point of, man, I think they should bronze the black shirts. Some are like, I think they should get rid of them. What's the difference?
Yeah, it's you kind of got to get in the weeds a little bit, which I tried to do for that Monday newsletter, and you mentioned that chart. I guess maybe to put it in a baseball context, last year Nebraska's defense was able to stonewall people. It was a pitcher that kept guys off base in terms of staying ahead of schedule. This year's defense through 4 games is more the pitcher who's a little erratic, puts guys on, but is still good at working out of jams. There's just a different level of risk involved with the latter. And it burned Nebraska against Illinois. I think one of the big takeaways so far for me has been, and we didn't see it over the first 2 games just based on opponent. I don't think teams are as afraid to run the football against Nebraska as they were a year ago. And that's making a big difference. Teams are just on schedule more often, and it makes things more difficult for the black shirts.
The one part that we're trying to kind of figure out here when it comes to this game on Saturday is the response. Now, if you go back to, I wanted to say, it seemed like this team last year responded pretty well, but then there was November, and this isn't just the defensive thing, but this is the team collectively. But there was the Michigan response, and then when you saw Nebraska be able to kind of have that ability to move past it quickly. To you, Brandon, is that a staff thing, a culture thing? Is that a personnel thing? Do you have that confidence that Nebraska has that in them still?
I do. And I think back to that Michigan game, pretty similar point in the season to where we're at now. That was game 5 against the eventual national champion. And Matt Rule put a lot of eggs in the Illinois basket game last year. And they responded, got the win, it kicked off a 3-game winning streak. And then, you kind of lost some of that goodwill, for me at least, a little bit with November, because everything was right there in front of them. One more win gets you to the postseason, and they couldn't bounce back from some of those losses. I still think I expect Nebraska to play pretty well on Saturday. I think in this instance, going on the road can help it a little bit, to just kind of change things up and treat it like a quote unquote business trip. But because of the staff, and I think because of kind of some of the veteran leaders that they have, I would expect them to respond to losing their first game of the season.
Brandon Vogel from counterread.com joining us. At the end of the day, Bo told us it was about points, ma'am, not yards. And you have to move the ball, and however you move the ball to get into the end zone and score points is the way to do it. How would you gauge post-Illinois, where they put up 24, but that kind of seems to be the ceiling of Nebraska's offense under Rule, is they haven't scored more than 30 since they last played Purdue against Power 4, Power 5 teams. But what's the level of the right run the ball talk compared to let's just score some points and move the ball any way we can?
Yeah, good question. I think Bo's right, obviously, and it's interesting that you mentioned there does seem to be a little bit of a cap, I think, on how they play, because this offense is very different from last year's. But you take out the defensive scores, and you're kind of sitting there right about average, 25, 26, 27 points. So Purdue will be an interesting one. We saw Notre Dame run all over them. Oregon State ran all over them. Nebraska hasn't had that. And, that's another piece of this when you look at the offensive side. Like, they're able to stay on schedule via the run game. They're missing some big runs. That said, I wouldn't expect a major change just because of what Purdue did the last 2 weeks for Nebraska offensively. I think they'll let Dylan Raiola take his shots. When you talk about the points discussion, how many total points they've left on the board over the past season and a half, just in the special teams, that's a piece of it too. But yeah, it would be a very welcome change to see Nebraska really push things towards the 35-40 point mark.
Well, and also, and I know Satterfield talked about this yesterday, because you look at the Purdue rushing defense and you're thinking, wow, they are vulnerable there. But the context of running quarterbacks versus a guy that you don't want to run, you want to protect, on everyone's expectation level for what Nebraska does in the rushing attack this week. What do you see from what Nebraska does in the running game and what Purdue could still be susceptible minus the quarterback run game?
Yeah, I think, so the quarterback run is kind of not part of the discussion for Nebraska. So put that to the side. Like, there's still something to the numbers that Purdue defensively has put up. So I would expect Nebraska to, when it comes time to run the football, maybe they do a little bit more with, the Ja'Cory Barney, try to get a little bit more creative that way with that stuff. But I would for Nebraska to be like on track for I think what we would expect for Saturday. A lot of the runs that they've had that have been 3-4, you probably want to see them 5-6 based on what we've seen from the Boilermakers. The defensive part of it with them is a little bit hard to figure out, because despite a losing record a year ago, like, I still thought Purdue, like, defensively had a good scheme, a good plan, and played pretty well. It just hasn't through 3 games, which is a bit of a surprise given their head coach history on that side of the ball.
Yeah, when you go inside of their numbers, they were the third best rushing team in the Big Ten last year, and they run the ball well. The one startling thing about me is I think we've gotten some good quarterback play in the Big Ten for the most part through 4 weeks, but a guy that you would throw into that category, you'd be like, oh, he's going to do it because it's Hudson Card. Hudson Card hasn't been good, but man, Purdue can't stay on the field. I think they're at 24 minutes per game as time of possession. That's not good for. That's a little bit startling.
Yep, which is really strange. So for one, that kind of strikes at, I think, the big question Nebraska needs to answer coming out of the Illinois game is, can you get off the field? Because they couldn't a week ago against an offense that hasn't been very good at it. And what's really bizarre, Purdue averages over 7 yards a play on first down. That I think they're 14th nationally in that. So, like, they're aggressive. They have some good scheme things that they can throw at teams. And their drives are still kind of falling apart. And they've got 2 running backs averaging over 6 yards a carry. So there's just something, I think, comprehensively with Purdue where they're not quite all on the same page, or the execution piece of it falters at exactly the wrong time. But with some of those good numbers for them, that's Nebraska's defensive weakness right now. So they're gonna have to play well to make this one look the way it's supposed to look.
Brandon, are you intrigued by what the offensive line looks like? Matt Rule mentioned other guys that have cross-trained from interior to the tackle spot, but also there's the whole Micah Mazuka. All signs would point to him playing. All of that with Gunnar Gatula, holding down the left tackle spot, at least for now. What's your anticipation of what the offensive line looks like on Saturday?
Yeah, it should be a hungry group, I would think. I liked what I saw from Gatula for the most part. If it were, I'm not practice, but if it were up to me, I'd be more than comfortable getting him back out there and letting him go a full game. I think getting Mazuka back is kind of a piece of it. Nebraska's offensive line against Illinois seemed to lack an edge, like particularly early. Like, I thought they'd be able to run the football better than they did against an Illinois defensive front that was, pretty young compared to what they were last year, certainly. And there just wasn't a lot of push there for Nebraska. So Those are the sorts of things coming off a loss where you hope just doubling down and being a little bit angry helps you find something that wasn't there against Illinois.
Hey, we'll get you out here on this because one of the developments of this week is the involvement of Brett Maher. At this point, because we're now going into week 5 and it's on John Hull because Alvano is on the shelf, when you add a guy that kicked here and has kicked in the NFL and wants to help out, is it more at this point of the year, more mental? He's working on the more mental part than technique?
Yeah, I would definitely think so. And with Brett's career at Nebraska, about as good as you could hope for, had his struggles in the NFL. So should have a message that resonates there. I think with Alvano out, it's going to have to change the math a little bit for Nebraska in terms of the decisions that they make. Kicking the field goal when they chose to, I thought that's probably the play I would have made there, but. It's a guy who hadn't kicked at this level before, and being able to get him some easy makes, not with the game on the line, might help a little bit. But yeah, I would think Maher's history is just a kicker, but also what he went through specifically in the NFL. It's probably you're playing a little bit of head games, so it's not an easy challenge.
Hey, as always, we appreciate it. Fantastic stuff. You and Aaron on counterread.com. And look forward to the game preview for Purdue coming out with all the little nuggets and notes that you have.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
That's Brandon Vogel. Again, counterread.com is the place to go. Substack, subscribe. What Brandon and Aaron are doing is great right now. Great content, great discussion, and that full defensive breakdown. Hello. They got some work to do so they don't become what was mentioned yesterday by a black shirt. I think he's a black shirt. Yeah. Fraud. Player on that defense said, we don't want to be exposed as a fraud.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yep.
We're 4 games into the season, boys and girls.
Again, said it earlier. Like everything I heard. Like that ownership, the accountability, everybody. You're right. You said they seem like an embarrassed team.
They're on the clock. I mean, Purdue's going to run at them, not away from them. And I would too with Maccabee and Love.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you're a really, really good defense, you're like, oh, man, we got to find a way to get lateral instead of run straight ahead. But they try and pound the rock.
How long has Maccabee been there? Did Joe Tiller recruit him?
I believe he was there with Kyle Orton.
Man.
Yeah.
He was there.
Danny Etling.
I mean, let's be honest. He was
Jim
there
Everett.
with Daryl Hazel.
Oh, God. What a nice man,
Tomorrow,
though.
we will name random Purdue coaches.
He was such a nice guy.
He was a great guy.
So
he was
nice.
also the guy that was one of the most available at Big Ten Media Days.
Yes, he was.
That's
he and
not
then Brady Hoke.
necessarily a good thing.
No. Tim Beckman as well.
All right. For Jimmy, for Nick, I'm Gary. Crossover is coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6.